back from Havana, going through the insane misinfo from CIA/Mossad, monitoring the situation. Trump's Iran ultimatum off-ramp fixes market tensions for now. ICE agents at airports as travel comes to a halt. Get in now. Look, I'll just start off by did you have any Ropa Vieja in Havana? Yeah, I did. Here, let's blast off real quick. So one of the things that I'm gonna say is that one of the things I'll say is this, before we get into situation monitoring and the like. I think a lot of people just simply don't do things, right? So when they see someone doing things, it triggers something in their minds where they go, well, I'm not doing anything. And that makes me feel somewhat like maybe a little immoral that I'm not doing anything. So I have to find a way to disparage people who are trying to do their best, right? And I think that's a lot of like the anger and resentment, even from like a totally non-ideological standpoint, comes from precisely that. Because like there are a lot of liberals who obviously want to fancy themselves, want to see themselves as like kind-hearted humanitarian people. So when they see like someone actually engaging in that act, someone that they don't like, they don't go, you know what, I'll hand it to them. These guys are doing this thing. It's fine. I don't really normally like this person, but it's fine. They go, let me find a reason as to why this is cynical, right? This has got to be cynical. I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. There's this like insecurity that's triggered in people that make them behave in this like very strange way. I don't understand it at all. I can't, like, I've never been that way at all. When I see someone who I oppose, when I see someone who's like maybe not the best person do something that like is surprisingly on in line with my worldview, I don't immediately go, fuck this guy, I'm gonna find a way to like disparage it or whatever. I'll openly say that I like it, right? I'll straight up say like, oh no, this is a good thing, or like I'll even recognize my own personal jealousy when someone gets to do something that I wanted to do, even if I don't agree with their worldview, even if I think they're cynical, even if I think they're grifters. Like one of the examples I give you is like Jackson Hinkle, right? Not the biggest fan of him, but I think it was fucking beast mode that he got to speak in Sanaa in front of, you know, tens of thousands of Yemeni people, right? Like that's objectively a cool thing that he did, right? Like that's something that I wish I could do. I'm not going to sit here and be like, fuck him. Like fuck this guy. He's cynical. So that is a strange, fascinating phenomena that I've seen. But it's odd. It's odd. And it's really funny because like a lot of people that I went on the trip with, also a lot of people that I went on this trip with also for the first time recognize it because they've like heard me speak about it in the past, like, you know, how my haters are like mentally unwell, but they straight up were like, yeah, actually this is like unfucking bearable, you know what I mean? This is like genuinely unbearable. This is like your fucking haters are insane at like trying to disparage every little thing that happens. But in any case, they're mad that you're not corrupted with greed due to wealth like they are, which is why they don't have motivation to go out and participate. But they don't have the wealth. So they don't have the wealth anyway. But my point is, look, I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. It's actually this fascinating, it's actually this fascinating thing where like I don't have access to fucking Twitter all the time when I'm out there. So I had no idea what this was, what things were looking like in the United States of America and how the shit was being covered in America. Until I got internet and I was like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. people are just straight up lying about, like, you know, people are so angry. The Cubans are so angry on the ground. The real Cubans hate these people. It's like, that's not true at all. It's unbelievable. You mean the actual world? Yeah, it was mind-boggling. I have not ever seen anything like it. They'd be like, protests are mounting outside of these hotels. They're banging on the doors. Like, that's not true. Like, literally not true. Like, not even remotely close to reality. It's so strange. It was such a strange phenomena to experience, right? It was such a strange thing to experience where, like, what I perceived on the ground, what I perceived and what I saw in real life was entirely the opposite of what people were seeing on their timelines in the United States of America and elsewhere. Fascinating. They didn't have much internet for the last 2 days, and I couldn't check the insane narrative spin on this website. What a nightmare. How do people live like this? They just sit around and justify the U.S. government torment against smaller countries who feel powerful, the weakest-minded insects. And I will go through some of the top line, like, insanity. March literally posted this, and he was like, you know, the first couple of fucking responses were really positive, and then immediately was like a sea of negative psychopathic takes. You're the common ground, MAGA liberals and ice real shills, insane quote page. Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. Like, if you look at the background, if you look at the background of these people, it's basically every part of the American political spectrum except for, like, I guess, I don't know. It feels like it was just like every part of the American political spectrum with the exception of, like, you know, socialists and communists. Like, it's shocking. And, you know, many normal liberals, I think, are just not tuned into this discourse at all. Because, like, normal human beings that you would have a conversation around this sort of thing with are going to be like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean these people went? Like, bro, so went as far as you being analyzed for drinking from an espresso cup, total insanity, a little cafecito? Yeah. The guy who made the glasses and shirts tweet is literally a Trump fan and liberals ate that up. Yeah. You're kind of becoming a litmus test now. Grateful you exist. Yeah, I don't think I should be this person. But it's very strange that people... It's very strange that that people behave like this. It's a very strange phenomena that I think it's a part of, like, the American existence. I think, like, it's reactionary. There's a right-wing attitude around the world on stuff like this, but, like, it's definitely. Hold on, I have to. Fuck, there's so much going on in the background. I just, like. Anyway, they do think and see you as socialist Jesus. Yeah. I truly believe that people have the capacity. I truly believe that people have the capacity to see through this. I think, like people are kind-hearted individuals. It is very funny that, like, there is this assessment of, like, you know, how much everything I was wearing. It's like they don't realize that, one, people send me fucking free shit all the time. Two, people gift me shit all the time as well, right? Like, not that it even matters. Even if I, like, go out and purchase it on my own, who gives a fuck what I'm wearing? You're an idiot. Like, what? You think the price of this button-up shirt is the reason why the Cubans are fucking suffering? Like, what argument is this, right? Yeah, he's like, look at this too. I mean, this is March's incredibly expensive hat, right? I mean, it's like, this person is memeing, I think, but I don't think this hat is actually that expensive. But regardless, right? You're an idiot for trying to justify it to them. I'm not trying to justify it. I didn't even bring that stuff up at all. But there is obviously, like, areas where there is a tremendous amount of misinformation, and you have to clarify it, right? And it's so crazy. What's the situation with Zeo Nazi Daily when he tried to instigate? Sorry, tweet. We'll talk about that as well. My lib parents like you from what they read from the New York Times, and they're not dialed into this mess one bit. Are you planning on talking to Dan Levitard about your trip? Yes, I do want to do that. I do want to set up an interview with him, or maybe have a like private conversation with him, and then maybe have a public one later. Yep, like the Kneecap concert causing the blackout. I saw this one a lot. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. Like one of the things that I found fascinating is this. It ties back into the argument, right? It ties back into like part of what I want to explain. Part of what I wanted to explain to people is like the complex nature, the complex bureaucratic nature of these sanctions that America has placed upon Cuban society, like Cuban commerce, and how restrictive it is, right? And it's very interesting that like American restrictions that make it illegal for American citizens to do normal shit in Cuba, they sound so silly. They sound so insane that you would think, like when you hear it at first, it's kind of like Israel in that regard, where you're like, that sounds ridiculous. There's no way that that's a real restriction. Shut up, right? Like the thing that people were complaining about, like the 5-star hotel shit, right? I found it really strange that they clipped me talking about it, and it's objectively the truth, right? That is objectively the truth. I just said literally what the American government's restrictions are, right? And people were just like, sure, buddy, and they ran with it because it's so odd. It's so fucking odd. It's like, but it's just that. Like, you're never going to go to Cuba, so for you, it doesn't matter. The State Department and the Treasury Department specifically, makes it illegal for American citizens to stay at whatever accommodations they want to stay in, with the exception of like 4 hotels. Okay? They updated the talking point that the hotel you stayed at was on a ban list. Yeah, I know. A YouTuber used that clip to say you were lying, but when they looked up the actual law, they said you were telling the truth, but you were obfuscating some facts. No, I wasn't. What a lot of people, I think, don't understand is that this Progressive International, Code Pink, like this entire flotilla convoy of aid by air and by water was put together, obviously with allowances from the Cuban government and also with allowances from the American government, because you can't do a massive 600-person humanitarian aid mission without getting the go-ahead from the Cuban government and without getting the go-ahead from the American government. Like I have the paperwork right here. I have the OFAC restrictions paperwork that I had to sign right in my hands, okay? I signed a piece of document. I signed a piece of documentation in order to, as an American citizen, I had to get a travel affidavit, a general specific licenses travel affidavit. Okay? Wait, the U.S. approved that aid mission? Yeah, of course. Of course the United States approved that aid mission. The United States Treasury Department has to approve anyone that's going to Cuba. A lot of people don't realize this, okay? Especially if you're doing any sort of aid, any sort of humanitarian aid. There are levels to the cruelty that America is willing to subject the Cubans to. But the reality is that the number one telltale sign for international human rights organizations is the restriction of humanitarian aid. So the American government, at least for now, has not restricted humanitarian aid, but humanitarian aid alone is not going to be able to make up for the lack of imports and lack of exports anyway, and we can't fucking send, barrels of oil regardless, so like we can't actually address the number one problem that Cubans are facing. But yeah, every single part of this trip was directly sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury, and a lot of people don't understand that, right? And except for this guy, who, ironically enough, in an effort to shit on me, accidentally showed the truth. Hey, by the way, Assange just broke U.S. law. Oh, and he could face a $250,000 fine and up to 10 years in prison once he gets back to the States. Hey, FBI, get on it. 30,000 likes. The U.S. Department of State maintains a Cuba prohibited accommodations list, which bans American travelers from staying at or paying for over 400 government-owned hotels, guest houses, and resorts. Now, isn't that fucking fascinating? Tip-to-tip reaction, brother. I'm lasering you into the fucking night sky like a shooting star if you think I'm going to be talking about the tip-to-tip. Here, I'll unban you. I'll give you a week off. You please, dude. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. There's so much shit going on, and I have to literally cover it. And you're out here. You're out here being like, have you watched Tip to Tip? Are you fucking delusional? Live on the same planet as us, please. Oh my God. So I said, yeah, the U.S. law is fucking stupid. I didn't break it, but this post is the only one that ironically acknowledges the comical U.S. restrictions on what U.S. citizens are allowed to do in Cuba. The five-star hotel is only one of the few hotels the U.S. government allows Americans to legally stay in. And it's crazy because, like, why the fuck should the American government regulate what American citizens want to do in another country? But that exists, okay? Isn't that fucking nuts? That's insane. It's the truth. And what blows my mind about this, I was first going to suggest you stay at a Casa Particular, but if you are there with a group, it would only make sense. Yeah, there's 600 people. The island is experiencing a total blackout. It's virtually impossible for 600 people to be coordinated in 600 different houses, or like however many different houses. There's not that many Casa Particulars anyway. Casa Particular is basically like an Airbnb system for regular Cubans to be able to open up their homes to American citizens that are coming in. Some of them are allowed. It's in the list of housing that you can stay at. Okay. And it's awesome. It's dope. When I go back to Cuba, I will absolutely do that because I'm not going to be going with like a massive humanitarian aid mission. I didn't choose where we're staying, right? But if you're there with the whole group, it only makes sense. The hotel is the same place. I went through this whole thought process within seconds. It's weird that people wrote articles about it. Also, that hotel wasn't that fancy. I went there. Yeah, it's not a very fancy hotel, but it doesn't matter. It's fucking Cuba. It's a very poor country. It's been kept poor by the United States of America. And what's ironic about this restrictive process is that these are privately owned hotels. So when people are talking about like the electricity grid and what the hotels are doing, they have generators. Okay. Not only do they have generators, but they're literally taking up some of the fucking necessary resources through private commerce. And it's ironic that that unjust system is precisely what the Americans want to fucking bring about to the fucking island. So the people that are literally criticizing the claiming that the blockade doesn't exist don't know what the restrictions look like. Number one. Number two, they're literally fucking complaining that like these hotels they have their own generators and they are able to keep the lights on. Yeah, because they're fucking privately owned. That is the fucking problem. That's what America wants. America's literally saying they will only allow oil into the fucking island for companies like that, okay? For privately owned hotels like that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's like what we're trying to fucking address. Now they're spreading a lie that you guys were literally throwing food at Cubans. Have you seen this? Yes, I saw that too. It's so cynical. Beyond the hypocrisy of Piker's Vacation, this just isn't true. As I know from personal experience, if you'd like help booking a Casa Particular next time he visits, you can do so through Airbnb. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I didn't fucking choose this. And yet they're literally just leaning into the lack of knowledge overall. Okay, they're leaning into the lack of knowledge that people have. Okay, and in the process, they're basically admitting that I'm right. Right? They're basically admitting that I'm right, but it doesn't matter because it's just pure anger. Why does trip cause so much outrage? I'm stupid. It's even worse than China. I think it's because it's partially because of the fact that like there is a State Department need here. Because the goal here is obviously to bring awareness to the blockade. And the American government spent 60 fucking years saying it's not the blockade. The blockade doesn't exist, while simultaneously enforcing it to use that weird invisibility of the blockade, the system of bureaucracy that's implemented, to say it's actually the Cuban government's fault. It's actually communism's fault. That's kind of the point. And I will be addressing this in the mini doc that we put together. Austin Ox is working on it right now. I basically landed in Cuba and spent every moment that I had. I didn't participate in a lot of the stuff and any of the stuff really that the Progressive International was doing. which is why it's also like additionally funny. While they're on the one hand, they're lying about like the events that took place. On the other hand, they keep saying I was, a principal participant of these events that took place. I wasn't. I was actually hanging out. I didn't do anything with Progressive International, even though I love those guys and they did fantastic work out there. Because I locked in with Belly of the Beast, the independent news outlet in Cuba, one that I really, really leaned into. I mean, they're fucking incredible. They do incredible work. Shouts out to Belly of the Beast. I will forever ride for them. Okay, they give me a little mug too. But basically, I spent every moment just conducting interviews, like talking to regular Cubans, talking to people that are doing incredible work, and investigating like how this complex system of restrictions has actually harmed Cuban production every step of the way. That was my goal, because I had talked to a lot of people ahead of time of this trip. Some people who legitimately said things like, Hasan, you don't understand. It's actually the Cuban government is incredibly repressive. They're very bad. They're not responsive to the needs of the people. They're hoarding antibiotics. Like, I heard so much from people who were otherwise kind people at times, and they were just deluded. And it made me think there has to be a reason for, why people are saying this stuff. Like, there has to be some truth to this, right? And it wasn't just Cubans that were saying it. There's a lot of, Americans that are even remotely well-read on the situation have read the State Department talking points for the most part. So I wanted to figure that out. I wanted to investigate that, and that's precisely what I did. It's decades of propaganda, and it's so silly. Like, you can kind of imagine how silly it is. Especially if you go to Cuba, you very quickly understand that like almost everything that you learn about Cuba is just ridiculous. Either a great exaggeration or just an outright lie. Hasan, go to Gaza. Hasan, go to Cuba. Okay, Hasan, why did you actually go and show the truth? You need to be locked up. Also, here's a list of imperial rules designed to kill these people you're helping. Yeah, I know. It's very strange. They say I sit around and farm donations at home when I cover this stuff. And then when I go there, they say, how dare you go there? You're performative. It kind of feels like they just don't want me to go there or do anything. It just kind of feels like they just don't want me to say or do anything at all, right? Like, it's more so the fact that I'm doing something that is very frustrating for them. So in any case, it's just an unbelievable amount of lies have been told about this trip. And obviously, because everyone that's on this trip are in Cuba and they don't have access to the internet, they had, myself included, had no way of knowing what the fuck people were saying and what kind of insane, unhinged propaganda was like being slung around. Is that ADL audio real? I don't know what the ADL audio is. Were you able to experience Medea Benjamin? I was. Reports that you died in Cuba? Yeah, I'm dead. I'm actually, this is pre-recorded. You ruffles and feathers. I think that's a good thing with all the dusty old bags we got around. Yeah. So anyway, I guess this is like one of the TikToks that was like in defense of what was going on.
About people coming here to Cuba to deliver humanitarian aid are very interesting to me. One of the headlines and some of the commentary that I've seen is in terms of all of the people that came here and they stayed at a 4-star hotel while the rest of Cuba was in darkness. I want to remind you all that while it's not illegal for American citizens to come here to Cuba, it is absolutely illegal for us to stay in any of these hotels that you see on this screenshot. We cannot stay at all of these listed brand hotels. We cannot stay at a mom and pop hotel. We cannot stay at anywhere that is Cuban owned in Cuba, because that was instated by your United States government. And those who do stay with Cuban families, because the first time I came to Cuba in November, I stayed with a family. They actually have to take our passport numbers and register us because of our United States government. Again, it is not illegal for American citizens to travel to Cuba. However, just like the sanctions and the blockade, the United States government makes damn sure that we don't support the Cuban people. The second thing I saw was, oh, all of these influencers spend all of this money when they just could have given it to the Cuban people. How? Do you know that because of the blockade and the sanctions, that United States citizens cannot send money?
Yes, it's crazy. People don't realize, like, all of that aid, we had to literally physically send it there. Okay, like someone had to physically put that aid in the hands of Cubans. Okay, that's another crazy part of this, where people are like, oh, you don't understand, like, why didn't they just send the aid? It's like, you're a fucking idiot. You think we didn't think about this? Not only was there like a cultural component to this humanitarian aid trip, because like there's so much orientalization that's going on here. Like you're treating the regular Cuban citizens like they're fucking animals. It's disgusting. Like the way you're talking about it, like you think they don't experience joy. You think they don't care about art. You think they don't care about being treated like fucking human beings. It's disgusting. There's so much like speaking over regular Cubans that are living in Cuba in this conversation that is mind-boggling. It's alarming. It's gross. And I cannot believe how much both liberals and fucking right-wingers have engaged in this. Like, it's crazy to me. One of the aspects of one of the craziest pieces of misinformation was that kneecap guys like sucked up all the energy and killed Cubans in a hospital. The reason why the Cuban hospital ran out of energy is not because the fucking electricity grid is falling apart. I mean, that's part of it for sure, of course, but there's not enough gas on the island for their generators to work. That is our fault. America, we did that. Okay, what do you think is going to happen when we've starved this island of necessary resources by stopping other countries from being able to freely trade with Cuba? It's illegal for America to implement this blockade. It's legal to trade with Cuba. It's legal to import Cuban goods. It's legal to export Cuban goods. It's unfucking believable. It's unbelievable. Kneecap participated in one of the many daily festivals that happen during the day. Okay? That festival that they participated in had Cuban musicians that were also participating in it. It was free for all Cubans to attend, and it was overwhelmingly Cubans that were there. It blows my fucking mind that these people can be so cynical and so gross that they think that like regular everyday Cubans don't want to experience fucking joy. It blows my mind. You just don't even want to think. Like, you literally can see it. You can see it in real time. You can see Cubans dancing, singing, having a good time. And you're like, oh, they must be brainwashed. Someone was claiming that they were being bribed with treats. Right? I saw your reply to this guy too. Yeah, this is the liberal version of this, right? Cuban doctors told me they have to sew up patients mid-surgery when the generators run out of gas, but MAGA on here are too busy lying about lying about the people that went out to Cuba with aid to turn everything into a distractive spectacle. Pure MAGA propaganda. You are cattle if you fall for it. The audacity to be on your laptop tweeting from a five-star hotel powered by generators while the local hospital goes dark. You are truly, genuinely a psychopath. Wow. This guy is one of the biggest, most troubled, most schizophrenic, vulgar demons I have ever encountered in my fucking life, and he has the audacity to claim that he is a humanitarian and a liberal. Shame on this fucking piece of shit. Shame on you. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. I wasn't even in Cuba when I tweeted this, for the record. But it doesn't matter. It's all misinformation. I couldn't tweet this from Cuba because there was not only was there not electricity, but there was also no internet. Like, there was just not enough internet. The infrastructure is crumbling because of what we have done. God, it's fucking nasty. What a nasty piece of shit this guy is. Shame on you. If you have the capacity to feel shame, that is. You don't. Okay? Oh, unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. I mean, I dunked on him too, and he lost his mind. There was a couple like ultras that were also saying some dumb shit too. and I had some strong words for them too. But yeah, I cannot believe it. I cannot. It's just, it really, I saw the best in humanity with regular, everyday, ordinary Cubans trying to make the best, trying to make the most of their horrible circumstances. Okay. And then I come back and I see people on the sidelines trying to do their very best to continue justifying the asphyxiation that we have implemented on this island. The people died because you morons threw a giant party and sucked up all the electricity. These are fucking Cubans, man. These are everyday Cubans having a great time on a free concert that was thrown together. And it wasn't just kneecap. It was like, Cuban artists that were also participating in it. I say you're a fucking insanely indecent person, and you should really think hard about why you're repeating obvious moronic lies that MAGA is spamming on the timeline, vicious scumbag. I think I cannot believe that the average person is this indecent. I think this is cynicism born out of just like being on this website. I cannot believe that people could be like this. Was reading on Dropsite that when the power goes out, the doctors in pediatric hospitals have to hand pump the ventilators for babies. Dropsite got this reporting from Belly of the Beast. Yes, that's precisely the case. I talked to a doctor, like I said in the tweet that this fucking dipshit was responding to. I talked to a doctor that told me that in our interview, when the power goes out, when the generators fail and they're mid-surgery, they just basically sew the patient back up and they go, we'll try again later. Unfucking believable, dude. Unfucking believable. Did you hang at the Malakona at night? People are dancing, making music all night long. It's beautiful. Yeah. I didn't. I went to just a couple different like bars. The first night I went to a bar with the Kneecap Boys. It was awesome. I had a great time there. We just dumped a lot of cash to the best of our ability on everyday Cubans. But it was much better, in my opinion, to just like go to like regular bars and regular restaurants that were, operating in spite of the circumstances, because it was, there were just like real regular Cubans there. It was crazy when you mentioned NeuroSim, and then you had people argue deep in the comments how it's fake or not a real cure, or whatever. There are a million cures. Made me so goddamn mad. Americans would rather die than admit a foreign enemy has any benefit. Exactly. Like they do not want to comprehend like real shit. They just, if it goes against their priors, they just go, no, that's not real. I don't believe it. I don't want to believe it. It's unbelievable. It's a lie. It's crazy. Never seen anything like it. Mart said, out of Cuba now, on the way home, and finally have access to the internet. I'm having a hard time putting into words the thoughts I have on my experience there the past couple of days. The level of cruelty to the oil blockade the U.S. imposed on the day-to-day lives of everyday Cubans cannot be overstated. Everyday conveniences and essential services that we take for granted are completely non-existent. Entire systems that were already dilapidated by decades of sanctions and restrictions from participating globally start to break down exponentially when you remove fuel from the equation. The innovation required to accomplish the most basic tasks is astounding. People existing at night in complete darkness with the blackouts, just trying their best to lead normal lives in spite of the lack of power. Yet every Cuban person I met was extremely kind, patient, and welcoming. The resilience that the people of the island have is extremely admirable and heartbreaking to witness. Cuba is a beautiful place with amazing people and insane potential. What the U.S. has done to that island is shameful and nothing short of inhumane. Okay? It's an experience that I think every American should have. It will change you. Okay? It will change you. When Ben Rhodes told me before I went to Cuba that I was going to be very sad, he was somewhat right. I landed and I could not believe how beautiful this island was. I could not believe how beautiful the people were. That was my first reaction. I was like, wow, I'm not a big nature guy, but this is one of the coolest places I've ever been to in my life. And then it was an emotional roller coaster. It turned into deep sadness. You arrive in Havana and you start seeing the trash that can't be collected because there's not enough oil and gas. There's not enough oil to operate the trash trucks, right? And then you're like, it's fucked up. It's fucked up what we've done. You see the houses that are dilapidated, people living in them. It looks like, they were bombed out. The outside looks so pretty, but the paint is chipping. Part of that is obviously the salt water that destroys the paint, right? It requires a tremendous amount of upkeep that this unfortunately poor island does not have, right? You get a little surprised too. The expectation is all the cars are going to be from the 50s. That's not the case. There's new vehicles in Cuba, and there's also still vehicles driving around. I mean, it's very limited. It's very limited in comparison to like what the normal traffic would look like on the island, from what I understand from people that have been there prior, right? There's a tremendous amount. I mean, there's a queue system that the government has implemented. There is obviously a lot of not hoarding necessarily, but like stockpiling of the strategic reserves so they can just like hopefully continue surviving to the best of their ability, right? And then after that sadness goes away, you get angry because you start thinking about why these are the conditions that regular Cubans are subjected to. And you realize, like, we fucking did this. And we're still doing this. And so many fucking Americans are oblivious, or the ones who at least know what's going on in Cuba defend it and repeat lies. It's unbelievable, dude. And then, that anger never really goes away. Okay? It never really fucking goes away. But, I guess that anger transfers to the way that some deeply disturbed pieces of shit and the way that they operate. And your anger basically turns into not just anger against the American government, but against the anger that you experience from people who justify this stuff. Don't talk about their poverty. It makes Americans think they deserve it. Talk about how much white people want to access the country they have and how little they get in spite of how much white people take. Anyway, so unbelievably frustrating. So how do you feel about the concessions that Cuba is willing to give back to the famous plantation owners and bourgeoisie assets? Brother, this is no longer a time for ideological rigidity. Not only that, but also the official Cuban government's position, even from the Castro days onward, was always to offer financial restitution for the assets that were taken. It's just that America shut off their exports to the United States of America to render that impossible to do. If you knew about Cuban history, you would recognize that what Cosio told Ryan Grimm in front of me, ironically enough, I was there. I also interviewed Cosio. I will be releasing that after we show the mini doc, which will have pieces of all the different interviews that I conducted, some of the more high impact moments that explain, hopefully, to people that did not know about like what is the reason for why Cuba is experiencing these shortages. It will prove to you without a shred of a doubt that this is America's doing. This is America's design, and it's unbelievable. Okay, it is unfucking believable until you go there and you talk to the people who are directly involved in the distribution of pharmaceutical products, the people that are responsible for the creation of medicine, the people that are responsible for the logistics of delivering the medication. Until you see that with your own two eyes, you're like, there's maybe some of this has to be mismanagement by the government, right? Like, and then you talk to these people and you're like, oh my fucking God, it's unbelievable. Amazing how the media can tell you all about human rights abuses in Iran, but when the U.S. is causing people on ventilators to die in Cuba, there's radio silence. Apparently, human rights only matter when we need an excuse to start a war. Yes, that is precisely the case. Yeah, the Cuban offer to repay has been on the table for decades. Cuba made this offer in '64 after the U.S. rejected compensation in the form of interest-paying bonds, similar to how Mexico in '30s compensated taken property. U.S. rejected it, assuming quick overthrow of Castro. Cuba is opening negotiations with a bid that's been on the table for decades. It's not new, okay? It's not new at all. It's actually something that the Cuban government doesn't even need to do, but has openly entertained, okay? Over and over again for fucking decades. Unbelievable. straight up decades. It is not dissimilar to what you knew prior to October 7 about everyday Palestinian existence, if you knew anything at all, versus what you know now, okay? Because it's the same forces of Western empire, Western imperialism that have created this hermetically sealed information vacuum to make you think, to make you believe a falsehood. It's that simple. It's just, there's no other way to describe it other than American state-sponsored propaganda. And it's pervasive, and I got to see it in real time. You know how sometimes I'll talk about how misinformation on the internet spreads about things that you and I experience together when I'm live streaming? Oftentimes it's about silly shit like, oh, Zohran Mamdani hates Hassan Piker. He disinvited him from the event that I attended, you know, right? Like the event that I was literally at. And you'll be like, why the fuck do people believe this? This is so crazy. Because it leans into like a comfortable narrative, right? That's obviously unimpactful. That's not like a significant story, but like this is being mass produced in a similar way for a much more consequential version of events. It's the same with Iran and the sanctions regime against Iran. It's the same with Cuba. It's unfucking believable. It's unbelievable. Why don't you and Charlie McBride get along? Charlie McBride? Wait, is that who I think it is? Who the fuck is Charlie McBride? I have no idea who you're talking about. Hasanabi blaming it all on the U.S. shifts the problem away from the fact that Cuba has systemic issues with an authoritarian government and their planned economy. Blame needs to go both ways. Yeah, no, you're a fucking delusional moron if you think that that's the case. Okay? Sorry, it's just the truth. There is literally, once you see it, it's impossible for you to unsee it. Okay? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Hassan hate is beginning to.
It's abso-fucking-lutely ridiculous. You are making shit up. Okay? There is no both sides in this equation. Okay? 60 years of fucking actively trying to undermine. Dude, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. When you see some of these interviews, you will fucking understand exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? I'll give you a teaser. One example. And there are millions of examples like this. I'll start with one example. I talked to a surgeon. Okay, he is a highly esteemed facial reconstruction surgeon. There's a lot of people who need jaw reconstruction because they have lung cancer or throat cancer. And this surgeon goes in and does this incredibly complex procedure where they rebuild a jaw for the patients, okay? And, there are more old school methods in the reconstruction process. And then there are newer methods that are available. There's a 3D printer. So this guy that I interviewed, okay, I'll tell you his name. This guy that I interviewed, his name is, hold on. Guillermo Sanchez, okay? Guillermo Sanchez, he's a jaw surgeon. We took a photo with some of his students and other doctors as well. You might have seen it. So he's a world-renowned expert in facial reconstruction surgery, okay? And I was talking to him about how the stuff works. And he said that obviously they can't purchase any medical equipment that has 10% or above American components, right? So that right off the jump is crazy because the way commerce works, the way international trade works, like there's a lot of shit that has 10% or above American components in it, right? So what these guys have to do is find alternatives. Oftentimes in Germany or France, right? They make medical equipment. So he finds a German company that's willing to sell this 3D printer. It's multiple millions of dollars, right? And they get charitable contributions, charitable donations. They get the funds together and they buy this thing. And they start using this 3D printer to do the facial reconstruction surgeries, to build these new jaws for these patients in Cuba, right? Long story short, the machine breaks. Now it's a German machine. Germany's not America. It doesn't have American components in it. But it's a very complex machine. And in order to fix it, in order to repair the machine, you need either a German engineer to come to Cuba and fix it personally, or at least like be able to teach a Cuban engineer to be able to fix it. There's proprietary tech in this, obviously, so they're not going to do that. They have to send a German engineer. So he calls up the German company and he says, "Hey, we bought this piece of equipment. Unfortunately, it's broken. We need a technician." And the German business says, "Sorry, we can't do it because we're afraid of American punishments. We cannot send a technician, nor can we send the necessary components to fix this multiple $1 million piece of equipment." So now it's just sitting in a fucking room. Now it's just sitting in a fucking room. And the impact of that is that either many of the Cuban patients that need this reconstructive surgery don't get it, and they have to go back to like older methods. Or if there's any sort of 3D printing that takes place, they have to go to Mexico. They have to go to their Mexican counterparts and lean into their Mexican counterparts or their Canadian counterparts in the field of medicine that are willing to take time out of their day to recreate these jaws so they can send it to Cuba, adding an unnecessary part of the process. Isn't that fucking unbelievable? That's just one story. I'm going to tell you, I talk to doctors, I talk to surgeons, I talk to nurses, I talk to neuroscientists. There is a story like this with every single person. Okay? Unbelievably cruel. Unbelievably cruel. Unjustifiable in every way, shape, and form. There's got to be someone we can find on Twitter that can fix it. You sound like Parenti talking about Cuba. Well, because Parenti also went to Cuba. And when you go to Cuba, especially at the time that he went to Cuba, things were different. Okay? But when you go to Cuba and you see how responsive this government is to the needs of its people and what kind of vision they had and how they implemented said vision in spite of all of these restrictions, you can never unsee it. It's just a shocking revelation all of a sudden. It breaks apart every single thing that you might have heard from afar about who is the responsible party. Will your interview with Jeremy Corbyn be in the doc? Yes. We will also release the interviews individually after as well. We're just going to put some hits, some major hits from the interviews that I conducted. First, the mini doc's going to come out. Then my Cosio interview is going to come out. It was like an hour and 30 minutes, almost 2 hours that I talked to the foreign vice minister. I brought up a lot of the, talking points, and I just like rapid fired them to get him to address some of these things. But it's, we'll of course react to them as well. Do you know when the ETA for it is? Yes, Ostenox is working on it. Okay, it's very, very, very. It's like 8 hours of footage, basically. I spent every waking moment, pretty much every waking moment filming when I wasn't traveling around, which was very difficult to do regardless, right? But yeah, an old tweet to your point. Yeah, this is Arturo Dominguez responding to Camila Cabello. Want to talk about all the more than 1,000 sanctions over 65 years, the failed invasion of the island? What about the CIA-backed terrorist attacks? Let's face it, that Cuba has been able to withstand the worst that the U.S. can throw at it for that long is pretty damned impressive. Pretty sure that's a sign of success, especially if there weren't any sanctions. And don't talk to me about repression where federal agents are executing people on the streets for nothing more than being observers. All the people Marco Rubio is locking people up for speaking up for Palestine. And when it comes to free speech, let's talk about how Rubio just sanctioned several content creators and independent journals on the island for doing nothing more than showing U.S. embassy vehicles cutting in line for fuel during gas shortages. Y'all's duplicity is astounding. Yeah, people think it's unbelievable. There's like people will be like, oh my God, there's like tremendous repression. Belly of the Beast is an independent news outlet that operates operates inside of Cuba. Okay, they're comprised of like Cuban journalists, international reporters, and the like. Okay, totally independent. They literally got arrested by the government. Okay, and I was talking to them. Right, I was talking to one of the guys. Like they got arrested. They got grabbed and arrested in the process because there was like the SOS Cuba protests that were like the first time ever on the island. There was like actually a big movement, right? This was like, COVID, post 2019, a lot of the oil embargo restrictions that actually started creating like rolling blackouts. The island actually was suffering a lot more visibly, right? Post 2019, this is the 2021 when the SOS Cuba, American-backed SOS Cuba protests were happening on the island, and they were covering it, and the government actually arrested them. I was like, so how do you feel about that, right? Like, because you obviously have told me a lot. Like, you talked about how like moral and how responsive this government is, but like your guys got fucking arrested for covering this. He was like, brother, think about your treatment in the hands of the American government. Like the way they brutalize you personally, like you've been fucking, tear gassed and stun grenaded. Like it's not acceptable, of course, but it's like the level of repression in comparison to like the everyday attitude of the American government and the American police towards freedom of expression is not even comparable, right? So yeah, there is a level of repression. Internally, of course there is. They're under warlike conditions every day. Yeah, the dude literally said, "Free you." They're experiencing war. They're experiencing war. America is not experiencing war, and it does this to its own citizens. Now imagine how ridiculous, how repressive America would be if they were also experiencing fucking war. Also, that stuff is utterly irrelevant when we're talking about the sanctions. It's not relevant at all, right? Two things to be true at the same time. Yeah, a lot of Cubans want reform, but the embargo isn't making things better. If anything, the embargo is giving the people, giving the government more popularity. The government deserves the popularity. I will fucking stand on that, by the way. Yeah. And there are absolutely here. I'll talk about the other side of this. Okay. I'll talk about the other side of this. Now that I've talked about the resilience of the island, the things that they've been able to accomplish, I'll talk about the other side as well. In 2019, while the oil restrictions were starting, which would then create a system of like rolling blackouts and visible poverty for the first time ever, according to like people that have been to Cuba before, according to people that have been living in Cuba for a long time, things started changing in 2019, right? It wasn't anywhere near as bad as it is currently because this is the maximalist a version of the oil blockade. It's a full and total blockade. Okay. At the same time, this is before COVID, the Cuban government actually, for the first time ever, no longer just had free internet access, unrestricted, by the way, unrestricted free internet access in their parks and in certain government buildings and hotels and the like, but now they created a bandwidth, like a system where anyone could access the internet. And that's where the fucking National Endowment Foundation propaganda, Spanish-speaking Twitter accounts started popping up. Okay? Going absolutely nutty mode. And yes, for a lot of young Cubans that saw the abundance and the wealth only 90 miles away, their immediate family members that have been able to escape Cuba and find a piece of that American prosperity, that's all they saw. They saw American capitalism and they saw the communism on the island as being the primary as bearing the primary responsibility for their everyday struggles. And nowadays there is a decent chunk, I will admit, there is a decent chunk of young Cubans that absolutely in Cuba that believe that the government's lying about the blockade. It's unbelievable, but it's true. Right? There are people who have been deluded into thinking by way of their relatives, by way of the American propaganda that is like all over the internet, that think that the reasons as to why there's rationing taking place because the government's like, ridiculous attitude towards rationing or whatever. It's like their mismanagement, and not because of this insane blockade. Okay. I'm glad you're at least acknowledging this finally, Law. You call it delusion, but at least you're speaking to it. Yeah, I call it delusion because it's not true. Okay? I call it delusion because it's objectively untrue. That's it. I mean, how can you look at a system where you think America yields prosperity? I'm American. I live here. I know what it fucking looks like. Okay? I know what it looks like. And it's not as though this government is even taking the necessary steps to lie to you. They're straight up saying if Cubans do any sort of migration en masse because of the starvation that we have caused on that island, we will round their boats up and we will put their asses in Guantanamo Bay. How can you sit there and assume this administration that has openly said, if Cubans try to fucking come to the United States of America, we're going to round them up and we're going to send their asses back to Guantanamo Bay with the military, and you're over there going, oh no, it's actually not this fucking government's blockade. It's actually, it's actually the mismanagement from the government itself. It's ridiculous. We can't excuse Cuban oppression as civil rights violation just because the U.S. does it too. What the fuck? I don't understand this logic. It's not an excuse. It's utterly immaterial in the conversation that we're having. And the only reason why we have that conversation, is to subtly justify, or maybe not so subtly justify, the actions that the American government is taking to make it seem as though there is a necessary reason for these sanctions. I'm not going to fucking put up with that shit. That's it. That's it. I've seen the impact. I've stared these people in the fucking eyes, okay? I cannot turn around. I cannot fucking turn around and act as though there is an alternative reason for why this exists, okay? It's the same principle behind, but what about Hamas? As Israel was carrying out a genocide, okay? And the reason why I bring up the government repression that we experience here is because I need you to understand the material conditions are very different in Cuba. And it's born out of this massively consequential sanctions regime that is starving the fucking island and frustrating the people. And the government literally has very limited resources to make sure that they continue surviving, that they continue fucking feeding the people, they continue actually giving people the necessary treatment for free, mind you. Okay? And then on top of that, people are like running around being like, Donald Trump is awesome. He's going to fucking save us. Under brutal, ruthless siege, any government would be infinitely more aggressive. Infinitely more aggressive. It's ridiculous. When we were waging a world war, World War II, we rounded up every single Japanese person in California and put them in fucking concentration camps. Okay? Your inability to find any fault in the Cuban government waters down your stance. No government is perfect, and especially one that's been suffocated for so long. You can acknowledge that, but but it's okay, and just because. No, I don't think you guys understand. I don't think you understand the point I'm making here. Okay? I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to just tell you the fucking truth. That's it. That's it. This is the same process that we have to go through every single time. Every single time a conversation takes place. What about Iran? What about the Iranian government? Okay? What about Hamas? What about what Hamas does to his own people? If one much more powerful force is literally sieging this island nation with 11 million people, engaging in siege warfare, and the government is trying to maintain stability in the process, of course I'm going to try to get dumb fuck Americans to comprehend what that would look like if it happened here, by pointing to historic examples of what we have done when we weren't being sieged by a much more powerful force, but we were engaging in a world war where Pearl Harbor happened and we put every single Japanese person in a concentration camp. What the fuck are you talking about? We engaged in the process of internment during our war, our world war. That's what governments do. They take a heavy-handed approach when they are constantly waging war. Now imagine what's going on in Cuba for 60 fucking years. These sanctions are not helpful. They are designed in a way where there is plausible deniability so that people that experience it eventually say, oh, the government is just lying about this blockade. It can't be this is all I've known. All I've known my whole life is just like fucking unnecessary poverty. This sucks. There's wealth right there, 90 miles out the coastline, prosperity. The reason why I'm bringing this part up, by the way, is because I need people to understand, like, of course there are people that live through this process and develop this opinion, just as there were tens of millions of Americans who looked at the current design of American society and thought a right-wing fascist monster was actually going to create a new wave of American prosperity. There are people with different mentalities everywhere. No one's fucking monolithic, and no one is going to be on the ball. Just because you live through it doesn't mean you're going to have ancient wisdom and you're going to be able to figure out exactly why things are happening. Okay? But I'm sorry, it's just pure victim blaming. And I don't want to do that. It's ridiculous. The reason why I criticize the U.S. government when we slip on journalistic freedom and freedom of speech infringements is because there is no country that has the same power gap between us and another country that's like enforcing its will upon the American population. Okay? It's not comparable. There is no country that is the hegemonic superpower. We are the global imperial hegemon. Okay? So there is no comparison where another country that is enforcing a siege upon the American population and the American government is trying to hold it together and trying to fight back against it. Okay? And in the process, trying to maintain stability and therefore engaging in repression. The reason why, of course, I criticize the American government's form of repression is because America is the hegemonic superpower. It's not even relevant to the equation that there are naysayers out there. All of the world's protesters can get together and it doesn't change the American calculation, the American government's calculation one bit. Okay? In To Kill a Nation, Michael Parenti addresses this so perfectly. Okay? They also see how shitty their lives are and that money and energy goes to the hotels that aren't allowed to stay in. I know that's not as relevant now. The biggest issue in the oil embargo right now and the energy crisis has been building for years. Yes, absolutely. So this is the other aspect of it. And I personally experienced this like myself. I felt gross about the system as well because we would walk around. Okay, people are experiencing abject poverty and darkness, complete darkness. But the hotels have generators. Hotels are privately owned, right? They're privately owned and they have access to oil, right? Because they can purchase it because there's a black market for oil. The government is aware that there's a black market for oil. They have a queue system. People with like EVs can participate in the queue system. All of this is like literal fucking on the ground reporting coming to you live from Cuba. Okay. So there's a queue system. You buy it for like $1 a gallon, right? And then you sell it. And the price of oil right now is $10 a liter. We asked every cab driver. Okay. $10 a liter. And the way it works is people with electric vehicles also get into the queue system, but they don't need the oil, right? They have EVs. Yeah, it's that fucking expensive. A doctor told me that the average salary for a doctor in Cuba is around $17 a month. $17 a month. Okay? But that wasn't the problem. The real problem was the fact that makes up, that's around like 4,000 Cuban pesos, something around that. I can't remember the exact numbers, right? The issue is doctors have to fucking go back and forth. Doctors have to go back and forth. The hospital, right? They don't live at the hospital. They live at home. It's 500 pesos each way to go to the fucking hospital. If you're making 4,000 pesos a month, and it's 500 every day, it's unbelievable. It's just not, you can't do it. How the fuck are you supposed to make it to the hospital? You can't. It's insane. It's unsustainable. This is destroying Iran, not the Iranian government. It's definitely designed to destroy both. I think liberals need to retire the people versus the alien, illegitimate regime framing, since those starving and bombing these countries don't make any distinction. Weakening state capacity is a feature of their civilian punishment strategy. Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you understand? Do you understand why I'm talking about it in the way that I am? In Havana today, I saw an old woman with painful injury burst into tears of joy when she got a bottle of Advil. My personal opinion is that everyone who should go to Cuba and bring the antibiotics and painkillers we take for granted in the U.S. Antibiotics over optics. You genuinely couldn't script something with worse optics in this Cuba convoy, Lamau. Like, they literally worked tirelessly to bludgeon the optics argument and to bastardize what was going on. And then they turn around and go, but what about the optics? Bitch, you're the one who fucking lied about it to make the optics look unsound. And then you fucking turn around and you go, oh, well, what about the optics? The optics look terrible. It's fucking ridiculous. It's like the people that literally participated in belittling this humanitarian aid mission to a fucking country that's being starved by ours, that want to also bring awareness to what our country is doing with the hopes that we can maybe make a change that will no longer asphyxiate the Cuban population. And motherfuckers go, what about the optics? And there's still people that are going, I like 5-star hotels. I like 5-star hotels a lot. They're really nice, you know? You know what I mean? It's fucking insane. I already explained it. It's like a bunch of fucking free 99 drones. I don't think these people are all paid for by the State Department. They're just doing the fucking regime propaganda for free. It blows my fucking mind. It's not bots, guys. There are literally people who have made it their life's mission to defend American imperialism because they think it makes them feel powerful or something. Obviously, there's like think tank liberals like Jeremiah Johnson, who's a ginormous piece of shit, right? Cuba's dictatorial regime is far more responsible for the impoverishment of the Cuban people than America is. It's a lie, an abject lie. Of course, his job is to defend liberalism when liberalism is falling apart. So, of course, he's going to say this lie. Someone goes, yeah, but man, like the embargoing their oil and causing a power grid failure does seem kind of shitty and cruel. I don't know if it makes the situation better. Like, this guy's a fucking liberal as well. But even he's like, come on, it's really messed up. I don't think the U.S. should embargo their oil, but it's ridiculous for tankies like Hassan to go sing the praise of a violent totalitarian regime and act like they're just small beans who never hurt nobody. Cuba is poor because it's controlled by murderous communist thugs. When is the last time Cuba double tapped a school full of children? Because America did that a few weeks ago, says Will Miniker. It's true. I had some words for this as well, right? The Epstein pedophile-led administration is double tapping schools, participating in the genocide in Gaza. And even on the domestic home front, we do worse shit than the Cuban government does on a daily fucking basis. 2 million people are in prison, incarcerated in the United States of America. 700,000 homeless people in the United States of America. 700,000. Unfucking believable. 700,000 on top of all of our violent foreign policy. And it blows my fucking mind. This is the wealthiest nation on earth, and people still go, oh, but these other countries, they're so violent. We have no leg to stand on, man. We have no leg to stand on. If you're defending America, you are not defending Americans, okay? If you're defending the current American government, if you're defending the current system, you do not care about your fucking neighbors, okay? It's that simple. I said our government is the principal party in Gaza's genocide and Cuba's unjust blockade. We just killed 150 schoolgirls in Iran. In the wealthiest nation on earth, we have 700,000 homeless people, 2 million incarcerated, and you have the gall to say another one of our perceived enemies is violent. And the reason why you say that, the reason why people say that is because they want to defend American foreign policy. They want to defend the American sanctions regime. They want to say, no, it's not. It's actually happening because, you know, it's happening because the government is scary. It's communist. It's murderous, bloodthirsty. Another response I gave to liberal Jeremiah Johnson, whose operation, by the way, has said nothing about the humanitarian aid or the necessity for humanitarian aid or the conditions for everyday Cubans beyond demanding that the Trump administration bomb some of these fucking flotilla ships, by the way. That's the only output from this administration, this CN liberalism operation, new liberals. That's the only thing they've said about Cuba in a universe convoy members. It's not complicated. It's America bad. Look, sometimes America's bad. That's quite literally the only. America can be good. Americans are good. You aren't one of them. You want to defend America's senseless bloodlust. We are death dealers around the world, and even Americans are waking up to the reality that our wars cause pain abroad and offer no benefit to ordinary Americans here. Parasite. Fucking believable. Yeah, and he's also obviously a genocide defender anyway. He's a genocide denier. There are a lot of good things I could say here. I could say that a lot of this is factually wrong. Joe Biden does not have dementia. Palestinians are being killed, but it's not a genocide. Biden's administration is very much trying to rein in Israel, etc. Jeremiah is also a coward who now realizes that this was not a smart thing to put in writing, but rather than admit to being a ghoul, he has tried to quietly edit his blog, thanks to the Wayback Machine. Yeah. Here is the other Center for Liberalism person, that this Jeremiah guy. I've heard a lot of bad stuff about you, but really been enjoying the streams. Well, listen, thank you for actually, having the charitability and open-mindedness to actually listen to what I have to say rather than unconditionally believe all the fucking lies that people tell. That's the goal here. Because if you spend, more than 5 to 10 minutes in this fucking broadcast, you're very quickly going to realize that a decent amount of people spend a decent amount of time just actively shitting on everything I'm saying and doing and bastardizing it to the best of their fucking ability because no one wants to address the issues. Okay? That's it. Yeah, here's his friend, the vice chair of CN Liberals, arguing for a Trail of Tears 2.0. The best thing that we could do for indigenous people would be to end all tribal land designations, encourage them to relocate and integrate the modern society funded by the government. The two-tier system is horrible for Native people, dooms them into poverty and subjugation. She also literally said, literally demanded that the Trump administration murder the humanitarian aid flotilla. Like, the Trump administration, go and blow up the boats that were going to Cuba. That's how fucking psychotic these people are. That's how bloodthirsty these people are. Okay? Yeah, sorry, but he has a point. I bet you tankies don't even know that Cuba has a prison camp full of prisoners of war that are kidnapped and tortured for years without charges. Look up Guantanamo Bay. But what you will learn will shock you. Oh, shoot. Read a little further on the Wikipedia article. Turns out my government is a totalitarian regime keeping POWs in camp in Cuba and open, and the Cuban government has repeatedly told them to stop. Yeah. Thanks for your continued coverage on Cuba. Latinos grow up watching Telemundo and Univision and are taught that the commie Cubans are evil. It's sick what we're doing to our brothers and sisters on the island. Thank you for your support. Hopefully one day we can see their great potential. I don't think everyone is like this, though, because there's so much solidarity amongst Latin American countries, both for Cuba. It's actually unbearable that the American government, led by Marco Rubio, has actively sought to eradicate the medical missions that Cuba engages in Caribbean countries and Latin American countries. It's unfucking believable that they've done this. I also got to see my friend, for the record. Okay, I got to see my friend that I had interviewed, if you guys recall, a long time ago, who had actually done these medical missions. Okay? Let me see if I can pull it real quick. Hold on. Yeah, Dr. Jose Armando Arronte. He is the he is in the Cuban Health Ministry. He works in the Cuban Health Ministry. He was, if you remember, we had a conversation online when Marco Rubio first wanted to stop these medical missions from happening. And he was so sad. I mean, he was so excited to see me in Cuba because he had invited me to Cuba, if you remember. And he was so happy to see that I was finally visiting Cuba. But he was so sad that these medical missions were being stopped by Marco Rubio. And he wasn't sad because, now, Cuban doctors can't go and work these medical missions and generate income for the country in some ways, right? Because that's the argument against it. But he was sad that in places like Jamaica, where these medical missions operate, the population don't have access to any other kind of healthcare. It's the Cuban medical missions that offer these people, these underserved communities, the only version of healthcare that they ever see. And Marco Rubio has ripped that system apart. Unbelievable. Another way that our violent desires our violent design harms others. And not only does it harm others, it harms us as well. I talked to, as I said before, I talked to Dr. Mitchell Valdez Sosa. Okay, Dr. Mitchell Valdez Sosa is one of the top neuroscientists, not only in Cuba, but around the world. Him and his twin brother are both neuroscientists. He's 75 years old. Incredible man. He explained to me how Fidel Castro was able to greatly increase the literacy rate piece by piece, first up until the 6th grade, then up until college. He's a massively accomplished scientist, okay? A tremendous guy, and has stories for days. I could have talked to him for hours, okay? And I mean, you can look at his work here as well on Google Scholar. He is an incredibly accomplished scholar, an academic, and a scientist, a researcher. Now, Dr. Michel Valdez Sosa has been able to do the unthinkable. Cuba has been able to create the only functioning Alzheimer's and dementia treatment on the planet. The only functioning Alzheimer's and dementia treatment. Every other Alzheimer's and dementia treatment that has been put together so far has led to nothing. There was a very famous case in America that the Alzheimer's and dementia treatment that they thought they had actually achieved was a dud, right? It was a dud. Yes, I interviewed him. And they have it. They have it. Medical trials took place in Cuba, and now there's additional medical trials taking place in Canada. But just like the lung cancer vaccine that Cuba was able to create in the 90s, mind you, okay? Yeah, Neuralsim is the one we're talking about. And I cannot believe that they put the context note on this. Look, NeuroEpo claims to rely on a single trial from Cuba without independent replication. The researchers themselves acknowledge that larger trials are needed. The phase 2 trial in Canada is ongoing, and wider adoption awaits phase 3 confirmation. They're literally like the propaganda machine goes brrr, the entire time. It's unbelievable. Cuba had a lung cancer vaccine in the fucking 90s. How many people have died of lung cancer in the process? How is this attitude anything but better dead than red? It's through the communist system that they were able to put the interests of the people over the interests of profit. And you can't have that because innovation must only come from capitalism. Okay? Innovation must only come from capitalism. If it comes from a communist country, that undermines the argument. That undermines the argument in spectacular fashion, doesn't it? The very fact that they are able to accomplish these incredibly impressive leaps in the field of medicine to save people's lives, no matter where they come from. Your grandparents, people like myself as well. All of my grandparents died from Alzheimer's. I'm gonna get Alzheimer's. Okay? My father has a diabetic ulcer on his foot. Dr. Mitchell told me they have a cure for diabetic ulcer in Cuba. The fact that America stops pharmaceutical companies from actually mass distributing this stuff, even for fucking profit, is insane. It's completely insane. It's unacceptable. Now think about how they've been able to do all of this while they are shackled every step of the fucking way. While they're shackled every step of the way by these ridiculous sanctions. Think about the unlimited potential that could exist if we did not try to disrupt their academic process and their research every step of the way, and then even stop them from mass distributing these fucking vaccines, these treatments. America engaged in vaccine hesitancy around the Cuban vaccine that they were, forced to implement, basically, Cuba made its own COVID vaccine, for those of you who don't know. And the reason for why they had to make their own COVID vaccine is because Alibaba founder, Jack Ma, tried to send Sinovacs to the island during COVID. America intercepted that. They stopped that from happening. America also simultaneously created vaccine hesitancy through a PSYOP campaign in the Philippines because they thought China's doing soft power initiatives in the Philippines. They're sending Sinovacs there. And now the Filipino population has a tremendous setback, and a lot of Filipinos have vaccine hesitancy. We know this because the American government openly revealed it, by the way. They spent millions of dollars creating misinformation and PSYOP campaigns in the Philippines because they wanted people not to take the Chinese vaccine. It worked. America did this in Latin America as well. Yeah, Cuba, U.S. embargo blocks coronavirus aid shipment from Asia. So the Cubans said, fuck it, we'll make our own. And they did. And then they started distributing it to all of the other Latin American countries that the United States was, refusing to send this vaccine to, right? And it's unfucking believable. But they did the same misinfo campaign in Latin America as well. Don't take the Cuban vaccine. The communist vaccine, it's nothing. It's not real. It doesn't work. It's unfucking believable. It's unbelievable, dude. Just to minorly correct a bit of what you're saying, there are now in Buffalo, New York, and at Roswell trials going on with this lung cancer vaccine from Cuba, but obviously still not widely accepted because of Cuba's stigma and sanctions. Med student and epidemiologist, thank you for informing. I didn't know that. I thought it was only in Canada where they are doing test trials right now. It is fucking crazy, though, don't you think? That there's like literally some of this stuff has to be in secrecy. Because if there's like, if this comes to the forefront of the conversation, all of a sudden it makes people reconsider this, the way that the system works. And then they go, whoa, hold on. We got to put a fucking stop to it. Anyway, it's just, I can go on for fucking days, by the way. I can go on for hours upon hours. There's a lot of medical researchers in my community as well. There's a lot of researchers in general. And I know many of you hear this stuff and you see this stuff and you think, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, your allegiance to the academics in Cuba matters, okay? That's another thing that I found out. Talking to the doctors, talking to the professionals, talking to the academics in Cuba, where like they rely on the kindness of strangers that live in America and elsewhere all around the world in order to keep things going, right? First ever computer, again, that Dr. Mitchell told me, the first ever computer that Cuba ever received was from an American doctor in New York. So people need to be brave, is what I mean. People need to be fucking brave and not have to worry about, like American setbacks. We have to be an unshakable, undeniable force for good. Yeah, I mean, this was funny. Hassan's $690 button-down shirt alone can feed a family of 4 in Cuba for about a year. Damn, he should go to Cuba and give them money. Yeah, it's so strange. It's strange that, I mean, it makes sense that this propaganda works on the fucking hogs, too. Like, I get it when people are like, but what about the optics? It's like, the fuck do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm literally in Cuba, you know? I'm in Cuba. It's unbelievable. You should have went shirtless. True. Anyway, why do you give these hogs the time of day? Because this kind of propaganda, unfortunately, has the capacity to muddy the waters, okay? When the goal here is to obviously talk about the plight of everyday Cubans and talk about the impact of the blockade, the people that want to change the conversation back to like the government will then disparage and belittle everyone that's like going out there to do whatever the fuck they can to help. It's a lesson that they want to teach everyone. If you do this, we will humiliate you, okay? And some people actually do get worried, right? They don't want to get yelled at or whatever, right? For one reason or another. It's ridiculous. But yeah, there's a lot of I love Cuba but going on right now. It's good. That means they're losing it. That means they're losing the argument. Okay? When they have to back away from this, when they have to concede on the grounds that when they have to concede on the grounds that they are like that the blockade is having a tremendous impact, that means that the conversation is shifting, because a lot of you are probably unfamiliar with this process, but for many, many years, the invisibility of the blockade and the sanctions regime unironically made it much easier for these people to say, there's no blockade. People can do trade with Cuba. There's American goods on Cuban shelves. How could you say there's a blockade? There's American hotels. So like, that was the whole point, right? That was the entire point. But now it's undeniable because Donald Trump is so vulgar and so open about his cruelty. So now these guys can't say that there's no blockade. So they have to say instead, well, there's a blockade, but it's the government still, okay? It's the government. It's pure moral bankruptcy. But yeah, it also drowns out this. You at least have video showing the aid you all gave away, right? What people are saying, seems like the negative stuff is just plastered. Yes. It also has it also completely dominates the fucking conversation. I mean, here, this is another example, right? Cubans are regular people. Cubans are regular ass people. They enjoy music. They want to fucking go to a concert. They want to live their lives in spite of the fucking ridiculous blockade, right? In spite of the crippling blockade. This is the Kneecap Boys participating in a public free concert that was put together for Cuban artists, okay? And they were like, oh, we're here. Let's do it. We'll also participate in this concert. So they also gave a free performance for every Cuban that was in attendance, okay? And these people, and this concert is just mostly Cubans, right? Like, it's just, a lot of people were like, oh, they did a concert for just like the wealthy fucking tourists or whatever. No, it's just mostly Cubans, you fucking idiot. Even this guy, Diego de la Vega, Team AOC Comms alumni, did you guys think a concert amid a blackout was good optics for this little trip? The concert was a part of a free public spring festival that was already planned. There were tons of Cuban families there, and it was cut short because of the blackout. Any more questions, says Ida Chavez, who was there. The other aspect of the tourism industry that a lot of people don't understand, the other aspect of the tourism industry is that, like, they'll be like, wow, look at, like, the only fucking, all the power is being routed to the tourism sector. And it's like, brother, American blockades have made it impossible to engage in any sort of real exports from the island. And it has made it so that tourism is the only way that foreign dollars can come into the fucking island itself. Okay? It's ridiculous. It is fucking ridiculous. It is literally the only way that the island can survive. Is the only way that they can get any money from the outside. They can't engage in banking because in the international financial system, here, I'll give you another example. Because I have examples for days, a million of these examples, as I said. Yanis Varoufakis talks about this, calls it techno-feudalism. PayPal and Venmo are American payment processors. And because of the American government's sanctions on Cuba, if you are a Greek citizen, okay, talking to an Italian citizen, and you go out to dinner, you order Cuba Libres, okay? And you pay for it on PayPal, and you write Cuba Libre on the PayPal or on the Venmo transaction. Both of your accounts will get banned. Both of your accounts will get banned. How is that normal? I have stories of people having Swiss fucking bank accounts. Like, Switzerland is supposed to be the most neutral country on the planet. Swiss bank accounts get shut down because they are, trying to deliver aid or payments to Cubans. Yeah. If you put Cuba on a wire transaction, they close your whole account at Chase. Used to deal with it all the time as a translator over the phone. Yeah. How fucking insane. You've never heard of this before. You never knew about this. One must ask the question, why you've never heard about this? How unbelievable. My read on why some critics are mocking people like you right now is because A, they're attempting to discourage acts of kindness and resistance, and B, some people have given into hopelessness and reactionary suicide at one point or another and project their ineffectiveness as a sense of futility onto those that try to do anything. Yeah. The Cuban government cannot open up bank accounts. They cannot get loans to start businesses. They cannot export their products. How can anyone live in this process? It's an island nation. It's virtually impossible for them to be self-sustaining in general. I got banned on Venmo about a decade ago, paying someone back after getting Cuban food together, and I put balling out in Cuba food as the memo, lol. Yeah. I honestly think they just dislike anything you do. I mean, there's a piece of that too. I work in fintech, and anytime there's Cuba in a transfer purpose, it's immediately flagged and stopped for sanctions. Yeah. Yeah. Unfucking believable. There are some ways to deliver aid to Cuba, but the most effective way to do it is by literally going and delivering it personally. And when you do that, people fucking yell at you and try to bully you and try to ridicule you. This is the problem. Anyway, the last part of the story that I wanted to get to was Nas Daily. This guy, Nusayr Yassin, okay? He is an Israeli agent, a propagandist, and he was there while we were there. Separately, of course. He did not come on the fucking flotilla. You guys are so stupid. Some people were like, oh, did they do no vetting? Did they allow Nas Daily to come on the flotilla? You're a fucking idiot. Now, the real question to ask here is why an agent of Israel is so invested in the aid mission to Cuba. Why is an agent of Israel doing this at all? Is it perhaps because they love the thought of starving children and they're an equal opportunity child starver? And that's why they were like, what a wonderful moment. I'm going to justify the starvation of children and the death of children here as well. You know, I love blockades. I love participating in them, right? It's my favorite fucking thing. Or maybe it's because the American government has basically outsourced their propaganda to the Israeli spy agencies. Perhaps that's one of the reasons. And I think that is one of the reasons, because a lot of Hasbara accounts stopped talking about Israel this past weekend and went on maximum overdrive talking about Cuba and how the Cuban government deserves worse. Isn't that strange? Isn't that weird? Don't you find that odd at all? Does that not make you a little bit curious as to what's going on? I found it to be rather strange that they took the time out of their busy schedules to defend Israel, to then turn around and literally spend money and resources to fly to fucking Cuba directly to countersignal against the work that this humanitarian aid mission was doing. Very strange. Very odd. Right? I said this about Al Yacobi. The only place in Cuba where currently has electricity is a 5-star hotel where Hassan Piker and co-pick are staying. This is not true, but it doesn't matter. I said every single Zionist propagandist have laser focused their sights with lies on an aid mission to Cuba as it withstands an American blockade. Does the entity not derive enough satisfaction from killing Palestinian children that they now want to offer help in starving Cuban kids? Nas Daily was one of these people. He's an agent of Israel. I think we all know this, right? He's a genocide denier. He says he's Palestinian. He's not actually Palestinian, or at least the Palestinians don't consider him to be Palestinian. He is straight up an agent of the Israeli state, the Zionist entity. He's a Zionist himself. He approached me. Are we still under bad empanada blockade? I saw I made a video interviewing Cubans. Are you fucking on crack cocaine, dude? As I'm withstanding a barrage of propaganda, you want me to go and like watch the fucking dude who was memeing about assassinating me on Cuban soil? Get the fuck out of here, dude. Seriously. Jesus fucking Christ. If there's anyone that's like deeply fucking unserious, it's a guy who literally turns around. Obviously, he wasn't even in fucking Cuba, mind you. But it's crazy that like he is so unbelievably disingenuous and so unbelievably mentally ill that he was like the first out of all the wave of fucking harassment on this fucking trip. It came from our left flank. God damn. It like, talk about someone so mentally unwell, so deeply disturbed that like he goes, oh, these fucking people are going for propaganda and a selfie trip. Me, on the other hand, I'm going for propaganda and a selfie trip, but good. You know? He's just a fucking mentally ill ultra. That's it. If he wasn't so mentally ill, he'd be fine. Whatever. I'm trying to be fucking sincere here. I'm trying to do, decent work. Nas Daily has built his career whitewashing Israel's genocide of Palestinians and Azerbaijan's ethnic cleansing of Armenians. Now he's agitating on behalf of America to violently destroy Cuba, right? Yeah, where is it? So he came up to me at the Havana airport while I was flying to Mexico and then flying to Los Angeles to enter the country through Los Angeles yesterday. I was shocked. I didn't fully know who he was when he approached me, yelling with a phone camera in tow with his girlfriend, right? And he was like, oh, do you know me? I'm Nas Daily. Do you know me? I'm Nas Daily. I'm like, what the fuck? I turn around. This fucking guy. He's like, do you know me? I'm Nas Daily. I have a massive YouTube channel. And when he realized I had no fucking idea who he was, he started immediately yelling about Hamas. We're in fucking Havana, Cuba. Okay? We're at the Havana airport. And he just starts screaming about Hamas and Israel. He's like, I'm Palestinian. And what you're doing is hurting the Palestinians. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Right? And then, this was when you were leaving or arriving? No, this was when I was leaving. Okay? I found it very strange that an agent of Israel was also in Cuba, right? And there were these wonderful older people that were also sitting at this cafe in the airport next to us. And they were so grossed out by this fucking freak that one of the ladies was like, hey, can I ask you, like, what do you do that, like, this person is yelling at you? What's going on? And I was like, yeah, I'm a pro-Palestinian political commentator. And he just like was screaming. He just got like more and more agitated, right? Got more and more agitated because I wasn't giving him the attention that he desperately wanted. So I turned around. And I said, do you feel like this is making you look good? Do you feel like you're getting a good clip out of this? You're freaking out all of these people around us. And I think that was a moment of self-reflection for him because he kind of stopped and his girlfriend was like embarrassed, right? His girlfriend was a little bit embarrassed. So he stopped. He stopped filming. We didn't film it. Marsh was next to me. We didn't give a fuck enough to film it, right? So he went away, and I thought that was the end of that equation. But we were leaving the cafe to go to our gate. But it turns out it didn't end there. He wanted more. He wanted a better clip because he couldn't get it, right? So he was filming from afar and yelling still. You're going to stop doing Hamas propaganda. You're going to stop doing Hamas propaganda. You need to stop being a supporter of Hamas. You're hurting the Palestinian cause. That's when I, experienced maybe a blip of cortisol spike. So I turned around and said, what are you going to fucking do about it? I didn't even drop my bags. I just said, what are you going to do about it? You going to stop me? And he walked up to me, still filming. I said, what are you going to do? Go ahead. Stop me. When his girlfriend realized that the situation was escalating, she tried to pull him off. She was like, come on, let's stop. Whatever. Okay? So we did. He started backing away. And I said, yeah, that's what I thought. We proceeded to go towards the gate. He came back again to yell from afar. To say, oh, yeah, keep running away. And so I turned around and said, suck my dick. And that's it. That's the end of that story. Okay? But of course, because he couldn't get any of the clips he wanted out of it, he had to fucking cope. But when I saw him make an argument about, some people see this and think central planning is a good idea, as he talked about, you know, the lack of trash collection born out of the oil blockade, right? I said, I can confirm that this Israeli agent was on the ground. He came up to me at the Havana airport to scream and weird everyone out. People around were worried about his mental health, looking forward to how he tries to chop up the video, wondering what his purpose was. He kept saying, don't you know me? I'm Nas Daily. I have a massive profile. His girlfriend also felt weirded out by his behavior. I hope he gets well soon. Okay? To which apparently he responded with, as a Palestinian origin Muslim for hundreds of years, I wanted to make it clear. By the way, everyone in his replies are like, you're not a Palestinian. Shut the fuck up. You're an agent of Israel. As a Palestinian origin Muslim for hundreds of years, I wanted to make it clear to you that you're bad for the Palestinian cause and your activism is hurting innocents and empowering terrorists. Palestinians want moderate leaders to lead them to peace and coexistence. They don't want you to lead them to another fight while you stay in five-star hotels, live streaming wearing Gucci. P.S. You are only strong online. Okay? That's what, then I said, is that why you backed away after people were weirded out by your antisocial behavior, only to try and muster up the courage later to try a second attempt at a video shouting at me from afar? Will you put how you stood down when I asked what you do about it to stop me in the video? So I denied him the clip. And all he had in the end was this. Don't worry, you're not worth making a video about. You can rest easy that beautiful video I took won't be online. So why'd you take it? Maximum cope. His girlfriend lying about the interaction because they don't plan to post the video. Law, what are you talking about? I was there. There was no screaming. No one was even paying attention. He walked up to you and said, as a Palestinian, you're hurting Palestinians. You hurled vulgarities and ran away. Yeah. It's funny because not a single person that was involved has denied the interaction except for the girlfriend. So just release the entire clip then. Post the whole interaction. Do it. We didn't film it. He did. You should have recorded it. Brother, how am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know that an Israeli Mossad agent followed my ass to Havana fucking Cuba and intercepted me at my point of travel and started yelling from afar with his phone camera out? How the fuck does anybody prepare for that kind of psychopathic experience? I will, however, say it made me maybe a little bit worried that Israel, I think, has that level of involvement in the affairs of any sort of anti-American imperialist endeavor, that they would literally send their agents out. To places like Havana, Cuba. Okay? Besh. No shit they would. I mean, I didn't think that they would be this involved. I thought they'd be, they have a whole, genocide to defend. I know why they are actually mad. I was wondering what the excuses are they're using to be mad. I said, it's because I went. These people have no vision or goals out of politics. They're purely reactionary. Their politics revolves around opposing me. It sounds fucking insane, but that's a big reason. I wish them well. But yeah, Hassan Piker faces backlash for Cuba protest trip. Like, I wasn't there. These people are just adding my name onto this. The members of Pablo Iglesias and Hassan Piker's VIP flotilla throw food at Cuban children. Insane. This is an insane clip. Anyway, I said this is the other thing. This is like clearly one of those CIA accounts that I was talking about, right? Mayra Dominguez, all these numbers and whatever, and they're botted into fucking oblivion. This is a gigantic mockery of the entire Cuban people. The left visits Cuba as if it was a party at a zoo, and they go to admire misery from a luxury hotel. It's outrageous. They're all hypocrites who live their lives sorted out and pretend to tell the Cubans that the genocidal regime is good. Now, what's really interesting about this very clearly bot account, the CIA account, is like, why did these people come to Cuba with aid? They should have just stayed at home. They should have just stayed in the countries that starve Cuba instead and keep demanding more of that pain from afar. Like, that's the argument here, right? That's the argument. The argument is like, no. It's really fucked up. It's really fucked up that you're over there, you're documenting the stuff. The Cubans that you're encountering are not actually fucking mad at all. They're happy that you're there because you're like giving dollars to the people that you encounter. It's one of the only ways they can get any foreign currency whatsoever. Okay. And like the expectation is not like, oh, the Cubans should be grateful or whatever, right? Like that's not even what I'm saying. Also, Noah Colwyn is here. The expectation is not that. Like that's not the argument at all. It's fucking disgusting. No one is making that argument. But the point is like none of this is bad, right? None of the things that are happening that they are presenting as like a really fucked up way are actually bad things at all. They're only able to frame this as a bad thing because regular Cuban citizens don't have a fucking voice in the matter, right? I know what I experienced. I know what I experienced. Did he run into you at the airport or were you tracked as in he wanted to send a clip? I don't know. But like all of these arguments basically revolve around saying like, fuck you for giving people aid and offering awareness to their plight. Like that's all this is. You should have just stuck around in your home and justified the starvation of the Cuban population instead. Anyway, also Ethan Klein apparently has now posted 800 plus Instagram stories about me since the beginning of 2026. The two have not spoken to each other in nearly a year. Apparently every single clip that he posted yesterday alone was about Cuba. And it was literally justifying the blockade and belittling the entire process. These are all from this. Puzzling. These are just a fraction of the clips.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
Taylor Lorenz, Ian and Anissa. Me watching the girl with the microphone closing in on 10K subs. Taylor Lorenz again. Does anyone actually miss the USR than the most privileged Nepo babies? This is unimaginably... What's good, King? This is unimaginably concerning. This is a cause for concern. It's alarming. This is deep-seated mental illness. Another Cuba... Whoa. Pull it up. Just hit it up a little bit. That's good. All right, perfect.
I already broke something.
Yeah, this guy comes into my house and fucking breaks it, dude.
What the?
Hold on, that's not the...
There we go.
There it is. This is the guest cam. Hold on. Why isn't this fucking working, though? Boom. Noah Colwyn in the building, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you're looking at my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very Cuba heavy 2 hours of this broadcast because, like...
Why? Did you go there or something?
Good one. Well, one of us did.
I'm sorry. Two of us did.
Yeah, I know.
At different times.
I'm just saying.
Oh, you're just saying.
You were missed. You were missed.
Thank you.
You were missed. But yeah.
The geography textbook that people are rubbing their hands together. Oh, wow.
Oh, did you see this? This is just a compilation of some of his insanity. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Noah Colwyn in the building. Here, hold on. Let me do the fucking... There it is.
Oh, there it is.
It's the wider shot. But, like, I feel like it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
It's not, like, framed right. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're kind of in the middle.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that it's, like, perfect. We're testing out some things. You were out here. You were experiencing it from afar. Did you think that there would be this level of propaganda and mass disinformation from the humanitarian aid mission? Like it's... I mean... when I fucking first got access to the internet, it was... I couldn't believe... I was like, this is the most insane thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I will say there are like two things. One is to your specific question of, did I expect like this particular level of response? Like, no, it is a little nuts. On the other hand, I'm not surprised. I think that there is a very vocal contingent of people who know... like half of a thing half of like one fact or something and are just like primed to respond in a certain kind of way to stuff they see involving people on the internet whom they recognize or not. I don't know.
Do you find it strange how much Israel is also like Israeli agents of Hasbara are also
I'm sorry. Are
participating?
you
in
telling me? Are you asking me about whether I thought it was fucking weird that Nas Daily
was stalking me in fucking Cuba?
Yeah, no, I think it's like listen, we are going to send the
greatest, one of the greatest.
We are going to send one of Israel's greatest lol cows. We are going to be sending. No, that's what I was like, what the fuck is that guy doing there? And then like it was really funny because I only saw a couple of his posts after he had arrived or whatever, and so it's like, did he go there just to like
I think
annoy you? And now he's like, what is he even doing?
But
there?
he couldn't even like. I guess he couldn't find me at all when I was there because I was too busy fucking doing shit, right? And because I spent like basically I have like 8+ hours of recording, nonstop of just like interviews. I interviewed Cosio for like 2 hours, which is crazy. Interviewed doctors and Belly of the Beast, by the way. What a fucking what
people
gem of an operation. Fuck me. Reed is such a stud.
I mean, Reed's the man.
He is the fucking man.
No,
Idaho
Belly of the
boy.
Beast is wonderful. Those are people who do incredible things with such few resources.
Yeah,
it's astonishing.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They're fantastic. Anyway, but what I was saying is, so they set up a lot of their the people that they had actually put in their documentaries, because like this is all about sharing and trying to get the fucking word out, basically, right? And I cannot recommend Belly of the Beast enough. They have such incredible high fidelity, high def, impactful, high impact docu-series out there. They're phenomenal. But in any case, also obviously Blowback Pod as well. Season two on Cuba is
in our new season about Angola, which is a central story of it is about the Cuban intervention,
about how the Cubans have occupied other countries.
Oh yeah, no, the Cubans invaded Angola at the well. This is the thing. It's actually a world historic first. It is the first time that one country invaded another country at the invitation.
Well, that's not the first time, because if you recall, how could you forget famously when America invaded the UK during World War II? This was a massively consequential invasion.
It's actually really true. The first part of Band of Brothers is about that.
Yeah,
is actually about the American invasion of the UK, which then, by the way, I'm a bit of a history nerd, so you guys should know this. In the 1960s, there was a British invasion. And that was when the Beatles and all them came over. Yeah, and that was the other way around.
Yeah, it's just like there's always invasions happening, and you need to stay woke. You need to stay woke to know these kinds of different invasions. I have to pee real quick, but I just wanted to hear you can go off on your opinions about the mass disinfo campaign and shit while I go do that real quick. I'll be back in a second.
All right, how's it going, chat? Cuban embassy. Oh yeah, the Cuban proposal. I don't know what Hassan has already said about it. Although it's worth saying that, Cuba has made offers to compensate expropriated owners since like the 60s. Yeah. Hi, Dad. How does he look at this shit all day? It's fucking nuts. Yeah, I hope you guys were patient for him coming back, because I know the stuff that he's been working on is really exciting. And I'm excited to learn more about the footage he shot. It was very, very sad that I couldn't go. But I also did get to go earlier this year with Brendan, and like a couple weeks after the Maduro kidnapping. Second to last day there was the day that they announced the oil blockade. So I got to see some firsthand of what I'm sure has gotten a lot worse in terms of the situation on the ground. And now I'm just acclimating to this West Coast weather. I should just diarize. Just do like a vlog. Talk about my day. All right.
What?
Babysitting's over. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Did you talk yet about the drop site report? I saw you pulled that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I brought it up a moment. I brought it up briefly in the beginning. No, a big fan of your work in the Book of Genesis.
Yeah, it's.
Can you please tell us on to get off Twitter? Your Cuba trip made it to Sky News Australia. Wait, is it a lefties losing it moment?
Lefties
Think
losing.
of that. And in this convoy to Cuba is a very high-profile streamer, Hassan.
Oh, it's a
Piker.
Josh Hammer.
Yeah, this lady fucking hates me. And this guy, she always has this guy on to talk shit. It's so funny.
They have like the same. Their eyebrows are the exact same shape, and they both look like they're unhappy with Hassan Piker.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hassan Piker is one of the most scummy, villainous individuals in all of US media. Lefties losing it. That's the name of the she has a segment called Lefties Losing It where she talks about that. Anyway, move a little bit to the right.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
how
yeah.
we this is how
Oh,
we
this is how
frame
we're
it
doing it
better.
now?
This is
Got
how we
it.
no, not all the way. Not all the way. Come a little bit closer.
They're talking about a matter of inches.
All right, bro, that's it. Dude, it's important. I want to make sure that this is like perfect.
What in God's name is he doing in Cuba, Josh? This guy has
doing in fucking Cuba? Sorry.
a multi-million-dollar property. He's got a massive following, very wealthy, and yet he advocates for Marxist ideology. Make it make sense to me, Josh.
Make it make sense. There's never been a
Rita,
wealthy socialist before.
I can't make it make sense. Hassan Piker is one of the most scummy, villainous individuals in all of American media, and that is frankly saying a lot.
That was awesome. Sorry. Scummy and villainous individuals in all of American
I
media.
have this profound effect. I don't know what it is, but like people who are, like Hasbara operatives, when they fucking, the mere mention of my name causes them to get aneurysms. It's awesome.
The stuff that this guy says is just frankly heinous. He frankly sounds like a Nazi sometimes, speaking about Israel's doing the Jews. That's really non-exaggeration. I mean, he speaks glowingly of what Hamas did on October 7th there. He's outright praising it, much like Zohran Mamdani's wife there. He is a self-avowed
Much like
communist.
Zohran
This guy
Mamdani's wife
is as
there.
out there as it gets. And the worst part, Rita, is that he is welcomed. Indeed, he is feted. He is lauded by many Democrat officials. Most recently, he was boycotted.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the worst part. Like, the worst part isn't that I'm like, that betrays the severity of the statement. If I'm like a Nazi, right, and I'm like mass producing like Nazi propaganda, why would it be the worst part that like the Democrats welcome me? Like, that wouldn't be the worst part. The worst part would be the Nazi propaganda that I'm mass disseminating with or without the Democrats like aiding me, right?
Well, no, it's actually, this reminds me of, this is how like right wingers in the Cold War used to talk about libs, where it was like how he's talking about referring to Democratic politicians here, like William F. Buckley. But you see, the thing is, the liberals are worse than the communists because they're dupes. They're dupes. They don't know that they're being used like this, and that's like clearly what the idea is here: is that you are duping, you are doing takia. You are doing tricks,
Just
and
like-
shenanigans.
Just like my Shia goat Zogron. I'm gonna see him this weekend, so I gotta cool it on this Zogron talk. Oh man.
The Epstein files obsessed congressman out of California there. He was saying that Hassan Piker was great. I stand with Hassan Piker there. It's just disgusting stuff. But I will say, I've actually been to Cuba. It's pretty rare for Americans to go. I've actually been to Cuba. I've seen it for myself. You cannot possibly see Cuba, Rita, which along with North Korea is probably one of the last examples of true legitimate communism remaining on planet Earth. This utterly failed, horrific, murderous
Hassan Piker and other American subversives are breaking the law by staying at prohibited hotels on the current trip. It's not, by the way. To rescue Cuba's failing Castro regime, prosecute these miscreants.
Maybe learn the law first.
Yeah,
buddy.
It's so funny that they on the one hand.
Yeah, actually, no. Oh, we forgot, Hassan. Before we sent you to Cuba, there was all these all this planning, all this research. We forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we made the really obvious fuck up, which is why you're now sitting in Los Angeles and made it here back safely and easily.
No, literally.
Oh, because you. Oh my God.
It's fucking hilarious.
Bro, these people are not serious.
But this one was awesome because like they unironically reveal how stupid this restriction actually is.
Yes.
Because because they got really excited to try to get me prosecuted by the federal government. By the way, Assange broke the U.S. law. Oh, and he can face $250,000 fine and up to 10 years of prison once he gets back to the States. Do you think that that's a fucking valid thing? Like, even if I were to have violated his OFAC restriction.
You know what? Something tells me that High King Fëanor, Alpha Chad of Middle Earth. I listen, man. I'm pretty good at sensing the veracity of sources here, but something tells me that guy may not be playing with a full deck.
Yeah, but it's just like fucking nuts that like most other people are too busy doing like they stayed in 5-star hotels on their own volition, and then first they were like, oh, they stayed in 5-star hotels, like, oh, they're fucking they're assholes, all this shit, and now there's other people being like, actually, they didn't do that because like openly admitting that there is this like ridiculous American restriction on where you can stay if you fucking go to Cuba. So, you know, I prefer
it's
this.
Also like there's so much like if you're going, you know, like, I mean, it's also like, look, like the truth is also like a lot of these rules were loosened under Obama. And so there is like a greater degree of freedom in how Americans can visit Cuba and where they can stay and so on. That said, even when I went, there are a bunch of rules that you do abide by in terms of like not partaking in like, you know, tourism activities and things like that aren't part of like an itinerary, an approved itinerary or whatever. There is like a kind of like, there are actual rules and guidelines that people follow. And if any of these people wanted to pick up the phone and call, I don't know, like one of the zillion travel agents in the US that does organize these kinds of trips and has some passing familiarity with it, I think that they would soon learn that the $250,000 fine and that prospective prison time for you isn't really on the table.
Yeah. But you rode on air-conditioned buses. Yeah, it's just like, don't stay in the Comedy Zone hotel. That's illegal, bro. You don't want to know what would happen. It's really bad. I swear to God, bro. Yeah. It's
also,
utterly ridiculous.
You know what everyday Cubans are really pissed about getting right now? Foreign currency coming to their...
I know. Everyone, yeah, you went too. You experienced it. We were walking around. We were walking around town in Old Havana, and every Cuban that we encountered were like, "Oh, why are you here? I hate that. I hate that you're here. It's the worst thing." That's what they were saying. If you look at the internet, that's literally, dude. It was unbelievable. I saw all of these accounts after the fact from like a day prior, because like the Twitter algorithm is totally busted and it shows you like tweets from a day prior, and it was like these guys, like the Cubans are rising up and they're surrounding the hotel right now, and there's armed guards defending the Americans in the hotels. The Castro regime is like, you know, turning on their own people. I'm just like, bro, I was in the hotel. Like, it's not a thing that happened. Like, you just made it up, and it's like super viral.
I mean, but this is where it gets to the level of like, some of it is that there's not like an immediate count because there's like an information gap, you know, because it's Cuba, because it's not like as connected and plugged into what's going on, and there aren't also like a bunch of eyes on the street there that can immediately rebut it. You can spin a narrative very quickly here any set of ways. Yeah,
because the people that are there also don't have access to the internet either, so they can't just like see the shit that's going around and like counter it in real time. It's fucking insane. It's totally insane. Anyway, let's finish this, and then I'm going to move on to situation monitoring, where we got to talk about the spectacular success of Operation Epic Fortnite, Operation Epstein's Fury, whatever you want to fucking call it. Massive success.
I've just been going with epic fail.
Yeah, epic fail. W's all around. W's abound.
And when you actually see Cuba, when you see this beautiful water, Havana could be in a...
Okay, whatever. Actually, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm done with this shit. This person was also going through the
conversation,
all the fucking psyops. This is the last video I'm gonna watch. And then, what is this? Wearing a $5,000 fit.
Oh, well, this is like...
To tell poor people capitalism is bad is wild. Dude, why are they doing Depop? Do they not understand when you're fucking rich and famous, people literally send you shit? Like, do you not get that? I mean, maybe you don't. And some I purchased on my own, of course. But like, what is this? Like, what What is this fucking Depop shit? Like, oh, get this fit. They got the wrong watch, missed by $300. Yeah, it's actually the luxury model. Yeah, it's more expensive than that. Yeah, breaking news, dude. I'm rich. Yeah, motherfucker. Piker Broadcasting Service, baby. Sponsored
I mean,
by
I will say, look,
you the people for you the people, motherfucker. That's how it is. Voluntary subscriptions.
when Brendan and I went, we did, out of respect for the Cuban people, we took off our shoes and walked around with our feet in Kleenex boxes.
well, I'm glad
because
that
I
you
didn't
did
want
that.
I didn't want the people of Cuba to have to see my New Balances.
Yeah, they would have been very offended.
It would have been very offensive.
Would it not be more performant to go out and buy some fucking Walmart does places to go
Yes,
to?
exactly.
Cuba?
That is correct. That is the
Yeah.
exact right attitude. Is that the actual like insulting thing
Also,
would be if you did like if
the
you
Cubans have drip.
Yes, they do have drip. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and also like there's like I think something that has like been kind of interesting is also, as I'm sure you saw, is that like there is in Cuba, like it's not like huge, but part of what the Obama thaw like produced was something of like a private sector, and also the increase in remittances from abroad and the amount of money that comes in from abroad that does allow certain people, like certain classes within Cuba, to have access to these goods. So it's like there is like it's not like people there haven't fucking seen a Cartier like glass, like haven't seen nice glasses before.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, I mean, it's like I'm not surprised, but it is a little bit like it's clear that there's like an enormous amount of ignorance about the most basic facts there.
Yeah. It's just all of it literally reduces to if you are in any way, shape, or form, like better off
Also,
than
they
the
did
average.
Brace so dirty in that.
Yeah.
That's so fucking funny. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's really, it's like, oh wow, look at this rich fucking,
Yeah.
look at this asshole, this guy's piece of shit. And then look at the guy next to him who doesn't matter. He's actually, that shirt he's wearing is for pores, the jeans too, that little hat.
It's crazy how all the criticism about having money and using it all stem from communities of other wealthy people who don't do nearly as much activism as you. FD Signifier himself said that none of us are ever going to know about 99% of the instances of you putting your money where your mouth is, nor should we. Yeah, you will never know. Well, hopefully you will never know. Okay, let's be real. Anyway, rich and wannabe rich guys see you as a class trader. I know, but like, you know what it reminds me of? Low key. It reminds me of like white supremacist guys that will be like, you're a race trader. It almost feels that way where you're like, why are you doing this? You should not be advocating for the poor. You should be sitting around and being like, I'm rich. It's fucking awesome. Maybe one day you'll get there. And like lie to the people.
This has always been like, this is like whether you're talking about like Gore Vidal or Oscar Wilde, like there has always been a tradition of like when somebody who comes from the upper classes and espouses left-wing politics that are outside the established norms of acceptable mainstream discourse within their country, like this is a natural byproduct of it. Now, when you look at like, well, traditionally, out of what classes do radical politics spring, at least in terms of the idea level, if not like like as the class with like the the ability to have agency over society or whatever, it is a class of like educated people with me. Like it's not. This is like a thing that happens over and over and over again, and for as long as there are socialists in a capitalist society who espouse such attitudes, there will be this like very aggravating and facile.
What's the
line.
alternative? What's the alternative for me to just like sit around and be like,
vow of poverty? I mean, that's that's what they want. They want every socialist.
But then it's LARPing.
I agree. No, I agree. That's what they think though. Like they believe that the LARP is the real.
No, but like it also is the exact same thing where it's like, oh. You sit around at home and you chirp. You don't do anything, right? You sit around and you don't do anything. It's all bullshit. You're fake. So when I do actually take my ass out and go do things, then they go, oh, you're performative. You're performative. Okay? It's a double bind. There is no world where they will give you props, which this is not about that anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. Who gives a shit what these goddamn monsters say? They're fucking evil.
About people coming here to Cuba to deliver humanitarian aid are very interesting to me. One of the headlines and some of the commentary that I've seen is in terms of all of the people that came here and they stayed at a 4-star hotel while the rest of Cuba was in darkness. I want to remind you all that while it's not illegal for American citizens to come here to Cuba, it is absolutely illegal for us to stay in any of these hotels that you see on this screenshot. We cannot stay at all of these listed brand hotels. We cannot stay at a mom and pop hotel. We cannot stay at anywhere that is Cuban owned in Cuba, because that was instated by your United States government. And those who do stay with Cuban families, because the first time I came to Cuba in November, I stayed with a family. They actually have to take our passport numbers and register us because of our United States government. Again, it is not illegal for American citizens to travel to Cuba. However, just like the sanctions and the blockade, the United States government makes damn sure that we don't support the Cuban people. The second thing I saw was, oh, all of these influencers spent all of this money when they just could have given it to the Cuban people. How? Do you know that because of the blockade and the sanctions, that United States citizens...
You literally can't.
You can't, dude.
It's such a crazy...
I love that.
It makes me feel insane.
Bro, why don't we start a GoFundMe for Cuba?
Yeah, bro. It unironically reminds me of like being... like just having the knowledge of what Israel has done for 80 years, like right up, 75 years at that point, like right after October 7, and just like trying to explain to people that would just look at you like you're the biggest monstrous piece of shit of all time, where you're like, I know the truth and I hope one day you will too. And lucky for us, I guess people do now recognize it. At least they're scratching the surface of it, but it's like, it's the same principle here. Like, this machine, this bureaucratic sanctions regime is designed in this insidious way for it to be fucking invisible. So when you actually describe it to people, they look at you and they're like, that's not true.
Yeah.
So they don't believe you.
Well, and also like
They don't fucking believe you. You can't send money.
And it's not just about Cuba. It's also like, I think one of the things that people in general predict, sanctions and like economic policy and the use as an economic weapon. I think that it's one of those things that Americans typically and people on the internet like love to, like they're very blasé about it. They're extraordinarily blasé about it, not recognizing that, in the case of Cuba, for example, Helms-Burton means, it puts incredible restrictions on foreign companies that do business in Cuba.
Yeah.
Like it's like that. What's that meme where it's like, I consent. Somebody you forgot to ask.
Yeah.
And that's like everything Cuba does except the person you forgot to ask is the United States. It's like, I think that there's and it's not just Cuba. I mean, Venezuela, it has been the case. And by the way, with these other countries, like Venezuela, for example,
Iran,
or in the case of Syria, where we're pursuing this, rapprochement, like, or changeover, like, the sanctions were kept in place even after Assad had fallen at first, because there is and remains this effort to use, like, it's a position of basic strategy. It's in the toolkit that every president, every White House, every administration uses, that kind of coercion is acceptable. Even though, I think if we look around the world, we would find that the extent and violence of that coercion and the effect that it has on populations, there's nobody that's doing anything like it that comes even close to the scale at which the United States operates, to the number of countries in which we do it in different places around the globe. And the
Lancet study showed that it was the death toll of America's sanctions regime, which it's complementary to Jeff Stein's piece on Washington Post before he left, was 38 million total. 38 million deaths born out of America's ridiculous sanctions, where we've sanctioned, I believe, 69% of all low-income countries around the fucking planet, forced them to basically create a secondary marketplace in and of itself. It's unfucking believable how cruel it is. And it's designed in this invisible manner. And not only is it designed in this invisible manner, but it's also, it makes you go crazy when you find out about it, when you realize what's going on and you try to explain it to people and people go, nah, that's not real. Listening to Mersheimer talking about Lance's report that since the early 70s, U.S. sanctions caused millions of deaths and led to ruin equivalent to the worst war. I suppose I could just Google this, but was the Cuba model for this new regime of economic terrorism. Reaching for the nearest LLM tells me that Japan in World War II and that China and North Korea preceded Cuba. But still, it seems that the kind of sanctions placed on Cuba in the early 60s did serve as a model for their fuller routine deployment starting in the 70s.
I mean, the way I would periodize it, I mean, like Greg Graded is literally one of the great historians working today. So, permit me like a slight reply to him here, but the way I would put it is that
it's just funny that he's relying on an LLM.
I mean, but it's because you can't Google shit anymore, and that's the exact kind of thing I would Google. But now if you Google it, it's just like, here's what Gemini AI says, and then here's like 20 results of crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that the thing that Cuba distinguished, like the context in which Cuba was placed under embargo. So Eisenhower, it's January 61. Eisenhower is leaving office. And in the period leading up to Eisenhower leaving office, the U.S. the U.S. agreement to purchase Cuban sugar is voided.
Yeah.
They implement all sorts of measures to punish the Castro government. And then in April of
they openly stated in the CIA this came after, right? The CIA documents that were declassified years later that said that like the primary purpose of the sanctions were for it to be invisible, but to like create great.
It's been made explicit, and we know that like the point of the sanctions was not to produce any like intermediate effect, or it wasn't about what the rhetoric is, which is about punishing the rulers of the country or the whomever. It is about squeezing the country to create pressure from below on the people up top. It's not the other way around. And so, at the time that these, very punitive measures were introduced, well, that's the beginning of 61, right before JFK takes office, and then he keeps it. And then in April 61 is the Bay of Pigs. And ever since that period, and then I would, sort of course, the following year with the missile crisis, we can kind of see, I guess, the beginnings of a Cold War era policy of sanctions regimes as this kind of deadly weapon. And I would argue, to respond to Grandin, that the Cuba model was that. It was a model. And you can point to Korea, you can point to North Korea after the Korean War, you can look at all of these other examples that come a bit earlier. But in terms of, it's hard to describe, just like in the 1960s, what was the biggest CIA field office in the entire world outside of Washington? It was Miami. Cuba was the biggest desk of all of the CIA's task forces going on, perhaps outside of Vietnam. It was the largest. It was where there was an enormous amount of investment of financial resources on the part of the CIA and so on, but it was also a place of clearly experimentation. It was a place where they sought to develop new ways, and there's been like 500 some odd, I think 537 recorded attempts on Castro's life.
Yeah, I thought it was 600 plus.
It's one of those numbers that no matter what the number you're given is, it's too low probably. Because I'm including all of the times that the CIA gave like $500 to a guy in a shoebox, and then he went and bought a sound system and didn't do anything.
Yeah. But yeah, here's the State Department memorandum, the decline and fall of Castro, secret memorandum that was declassified, but it's from April 6, 1960. Salient considerations of respecting the life of the present government in Cuba are: the majority of Cubans support Castro. The lowest estimate I've seen is 50%. There's no effective political opposition. Fidel Castro and other members of the Cuban government espouse or condone communist influence. Communist influence is pervading the government and the body politic at an amazingly fast rate. The only foreseeable means of alienating internal support is through disenchantment and disaffection based on economic dissatisfaction and hardship.
By the way, this is like exactly a year before the Bay of Pigs takes place.
Yeah.
And so, which means, by the way, that as this happens, so in 1960, like as the presidential campaign is happening, they are putting together the plans and organizing what will be the Bay of Pigs. Quite famously, Allen Dulles briefed both Nixon. Nixon was involved in it, but he briefed JFK as well. And then at a debate, JFK, knowing that Nixon couldn't talk about what was going on, like slammed Nixon for being soft on Cuba, which is a pretty clever move. But the whole this was part of like a whole escalatory program against Cuba that like began in 1960 and literally has not stopped after 65 years.
Unfucking believable shit.
Have sanctions ever worked anywhere? Well, what's worked? Like Vincent Bevins, the journalist, has made a really compelling. He made a really compelling argument in his Substack that I would highly recommend people to look up. If you Google the phrase "regime collapse," it'll come up. But like he makes this argument that like a lot of what these policies are designed to do and their effect is not about implementing a regime change. They're not about really anything other than trying to introduce as much pain as possible to eliminate the conditions of governance, period. And you could say that like by themselves, have they ever worked? I couldn't come up with an answer off the dome. But I do think that when you look at sanctions applied in concert with kinetic military action as well as other kinds of diplomatic pressure or isolation, it's incredibly effective. They're very effective, and I think it's really like the question of like, do they work or not is like, well, they inflict the pain, they inflict the damage, so by that measure they work. It's like like, does the car get you from point A to point B?
And also,
yes,
it does. It's like it puts the countries in an impossible bind because like when you're under siege like conditions. And there is like internal instability that will come about as a direct consequence of like economic instability. Then the government's like, okay, well, people are fucking chirping. What do? We have to like arrest some people, And then it's like that repression snowballs into more and more discontent until like it happened in Iran, where America and Israel decide to just like drop the ball and realize that they can't really implement popular mobilization on the ground. So they just decide to directly start bombing the fucking country. But of course, in the case of Iran, which are going to move into now, if that country has hands, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, you're cheating.
I'm sorry. It's not. We were allowed to put military bases in every country that borders you, but you're not allowed to hit them.
Yeah.
That was
so funny. It's such a funny way to fucking approach. And Donald Trump has basically openly revealed that too. Like they have literally openly revealed like it's illegal to strike back. Economically literate and principled neoliberals from Milton Friedman to Hillary Clinton have always argued against sanctions precisely on the grounds that they make impossible to credibly attribute Cuba's failure to socialism. It's the hacks who like this who won't admit it.
Jeremiah Johnson, that guy on Twitter, he's not. He's you for those watching.
His entire purpose.
He's a billionaire flesh puppet. You don't need. You can just ignore him.
But it is interesting that aside from the Israeli agents, like the Hasbara merchants on the outrage factory, it is actually Third Way and the neoliberal think tanks that are my biggest ops.
Because they have, I think that's because centrist, like self-avowed centrist politics, not like people who self-identify as moderates and are trying to find middle paths, but like people who legitimately believe in a kind of like political fusionism where it's like we support gay marriage and we also support you never having healthcare in your life, whatever. Like, those kinds of people, the thing that they can actually most saliently define their, their identity right now, the thing that helps them do that the most is to do an opposition politics organized again, like on, in the Cold War era, this would have been against communism, but now it's against, people who have these kinds of, sympathetic left-wing politics and foreign policy or whatever, because they can't say, oh, well, I support all the AI companies, for example, like these like vastly, insanely unpopular avatars for like everything wrong with American capitalism right now, et cetera, and like you can't talk about that because that's actually really unpopular. So you have to go to the issues where people don't know a whole lot. And that where your opponents, where your ops are currently engaged. So they're meeting you where you are.
But it's funny because like the issues that I advance, that I want to bring awareness to, unfortunately for them, are also deeply popular in the base. So then they find themselves in opposition to like a Free Palestine movement. And that, I think, further isolates them from average people. But I guess that's not really the point. But the point is to just like, create some fuss and try to present me as like a toxic individual.
Well, but because they're not waging on the level of like trying to reach people. This is about like a kind of
raising the issue of my toxicity to politicians.
Exactly, elite level discourse where it's like, so a guy at Third Way and his junior staffer who probably wrote the piece can co-write something for the Wall Street Journal op-ed page. Nobody's going to give a shit about that. No general person. The point of that is that it influences like elite opinion, perhaps, and it'll create a stink. That said, the fact that it ran in the Wall Street Journal opinion section, which is like truly the intellectual level of a fucking townhall.com comment section, it's to me at the very fucking least, it's like it just shows that they have no emotion, they have no sauce, they have no juice. Nobody cares what any of these people think about this. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to situation monitoring, which, I've done very little of for the past couple of days because I've been in Cuba. But the war effort's going really well, Noah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's...
Victory's coming any day now.
Any day now. One of my favorite...
I've actually been really, I've been really excited to do my part because I live in Manhattan. and I don't have a car, but I'm excited to be here in Los Angeles where I have a rental car, and I can do my part to support the war effort by paying for $7 a gallon gas.
War bonds. It's our version of war bonds.
Oh wait, Jerry Baker. Sorry, he's not just the Wall Street Journal editor at large. He's the former editor of the entire paper.
Yeah.
He's like not like a.
Iranian media says there was no direct or indirect contact with Trump and claims he withdrew after threatening to attack West Asia energy facilities. The unsettling reality is that with this president, Americans in wartime are in an unprecedented position of having to suspect that the enemy's version of events is more likely to be true than our own. We have become Baghdad Bob. He has to say that because we were always Baghdad Bob. I'm sorry. There's never been a moment where we're not Baghdad Bob.
Sorry, you're telling me that the ex-editor of the paper who moderated presidential debates in 2016 for Fox Business News might not be letting on all that he knows about the failures of media.
Been this. The only difference is Trump is so vulgar and so incompetent that there is no liberal patina that even the previous formation was able to slap on, right? It's totally fucking ridiculous. It's totally, this is what I wanted to show.
Oh, this is all I love.
This is the best.
I read this aloud to myself. This is the
best sequence of events. Friday's press gaggle, barely exaggerated. At 12:03 p.m., President Trump told reporters he wanted a ceasefire with Iran. At 12:05, he declared victory. At 12:07, he announced he was sending Marines. At 12:08, he said no boots on the ground.
How do you do that in 60 seconds?
At 12:11, he said he did not want a ceasefire. At 12:16, he declared victory again. At 12:17, he asked for a ceasefire. At 12:23, he told NATO they were cowards. At 12:29, he said Iran was begging for a ceasefire. At 12:31, he said everything was perfect. At 12:36, he said $500 oil was a good thing. At 12:37, he demanded Iran open the Hormuz. At 12:39, he said Hormuz was never closed. At 12:41, he said the U.S. was not at war with Iran. At 12:42, he declared victory in Iran. There's no... What are we doing? There's no way.
We're did you hear the next thing though? We've had some developments since this. It appears that we may jointly operate Hormuz.
Yeah.
Did you see the Dylan Sawa tweet?
Sorry, you're wrong. Pentagon weighs deployment of air troops to Iran.
God.
It's like if you
were so close.
If you blink, you will literally see a role reversal. And my favorite thing, because as you might know, dirty commie and all, I have this principled stance that money is more fake. This is the fakest money has ever been. Okay, there's no world where the stock market is associated with any fucking fundamentals whatsoever. We have never had money be so fake in our entire lives, because while this guy is contradicting himself, sometimes in the same minute, sometimes in the same sentence, the stock market is leaning into whatever they want to hear, and they're going, "Oh no, it's great actually." Now all of a sudden, the markets are stabilizing.
Well, I do think it was really funny though that the market went back to taking a bit of a shit, and oil went back to increasing as soon as Iran said, "Hold up, hold a minute, we're not talking."
Yeah, look at this.
It's so good.
At 7:04 a.m. Eastern today, President Trump said the U.S. and Iran have had a productive discussion to end the Iran war. Okay, boom. At 7:10 a.m., S&P surged 240 points, adding $2 trillion to the market cap. 27 minutes later, Iran completely denied all of President Trump's claims and said there has been no contact with the U.S. At 8 a.m. Eastern, the S&P 500 had fallen 120 points, erasing $1 trillion in market cap. There is a $3 trillion swing market cap in 56 minutes just in the S&P 500.
Yeah, I love that. The S&P 500, famous for its volatility.
Yeah.
That's it's hard to convey just how, what you don't hear anybody say anymore?
What?
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we got to
We've eviscerated.
We are in something.
Bro,
and we're not out of it, and it's not ending anytime soon.
When Francis Fukuyama is running around being like, countries need to develop nuclear sovereignty pronto, it's fucking over, baby.
I do think that there is like, but this goes to something that you were getting at though about like why it's like these third way people, like nobody listen. Like you got the fucking Jerry Baker at the Wall Street Journal saying like we can't trust our president or whatever. Like it's just hard to convey how strange and surreal it is to have something this yes, this is what I was talking about. Which, by the way, look up somebody find the Iranian embassy in I think South Africa. They copied the tweet.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Trump tells reporters that the Strait of Hormuz may be jointly controlled by me and the Ayatollah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's fucking brilliant, dude. Oh my Lord, that's so good. Energy industry insider in Iran tells me the following, and it's stunning, says Shrita Parsi. Before the war, Iran produced just shy of 1.1 million barrels of oil per day and sold it at $65 per barrel minus $18 discount, i.e. $47. Today, it produces 1.5 million barrels per day and sells it at $110 with only $2 to $4 a discount. And this does not include petrochemical sales that not only have increased, but are now being sold as a larger set of customers compared to before the war. Moreover, Iran is receiving payments through new mechanisms that bypass the UAE, which were set up after the June war. In essence, and this is really important to understand, Trump and Israel's war has ended up delivering Iran de facto sanctions relief. And on top of that, they're now they're making them pay tolls if they want to pass the fucking Strait of Hormuz.
Well, and they're the way that they're making those tolls work. So like in the 1970s, one of the ways that America dealt with the oil shock in 74, in 73, 74, and then in 79, but especially in the earlier phase, was that America, we left the gold standard earlier in the decade, but the biggest one of the biggest, most unheralded parts of that was that we recycled petrodollars by selling all of these governments, crazy huge weapons. That was part of how we fixed all this. We used that geopolitical tumult and that circumstance to reweight the dollar and recreate, and help, restore a stronger dollar by having, these Arab governments spend and Iran at that time spend crazy amounts of money with us on F-6 on fighter jets and whatever. Now, like Iran arguably is, trying to force a similar kind of thing because not only have they, clearly they're in the money, as Shrita Parsi tells it in some respect, but now they're also saying, no, the only way the oil goes is if you pay us in yuan.
Yes.
Meaning that they are trying to
destroy the petrodollar system.
Exactly. And, granted, the petrodollar system is like, it's a bit of an antiquated way of looking at it just because like it doesn't.
It's also one that like, I feel like they just kind of threw that out there for China.
It's the image. It's about how it looks.
Yeah, China doesn't even fucking want it. Like, I don't think China is ready for being like the domineering hegemonic.
They don't
power.
want it. They want to do nothing and win, and they will. But like,
this is the unironic do nothing win moment though, because like China is always doing things right. I don't agree with the do nothing win principle when it comes to China, but this is absolutely a moment where they did nothing. They literally objectively did nothing.
And they will probably be part of the diplomatic resolution.
Yeah. Well, they have to be.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not really sure.
Who's going to maintain stability?
I mean, well, right now, the crazy thing is that supposedly the talks that they're claiming have been happening are in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Which is also like
Islamabad.
But it's like, okay, so that's just a rehash of the Oman thing
Which
where you're going to like a third party.
I personally take offense to as a Turk because we are normally the table. The fact that they're going to Islamabad instead of Turkey is unbelievable. We are the table. We are at the table is really fucked up.
You're under the table right now.
Yeah, we're under the table currently. Literally, the Iranians lasered one of our helicopters, which is like there's two major military presence in Qatar, and it's America, obviously the biggest one, CENTCOM, and then Turkey. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, flying around their troops, and I believe Aselsan engineers in a helicopter. I don't know what the fuck was going on there, but yeah, they shot down a Turkish helicopter. We're no longer at the table. It frustrates me. Islam good, bro. Islamabad is Islamophobic. Yeah. Turkey's an intermediary. Okay, never mind. We're still Hakan Fidan. We're still at the table. Never mind. Confirmed. Turkish source tells Al Monitor the U.S. is asking for
Okay,
talks.
but this is awesome because now all the leaks are just, hey, look at all of our ideas for talks. We
Yeah.
love talking. We love talking.
Yeah,
We
what a
love
fucking
talking.
dude.
We love talking. Do not mind all these troops that we're massing.
Yeah.
Do not mind that we've killed literally every person that we've talked to.
Yeah.
Don't mind it.
Iran don't fuck with Fidan. Yeah, I mean, no shit, dude. Look,
Well, duh.
yeah, this is. Sorry, but Turkey is literally a principled
Second
agent.
largest standing army in NATO. Come on.
Yeah, and also literally has its own sovereign needs, obviously, has its own regional goals, of course. And America sometimes lets them accomplish it, which regional goals basically just like killing Kurds. That's like, for the most part, that's what the regional goals are. But like, but outside of that, there is like tensions boiling between Turkey and Israel, but it doesn't change the dynamic that like Turkey does actually play. Turkey does play a major role in making sure that the Israeli energy grid stays stable. I mean, the pipelines from Azerbaijan go through Turkey, and the Turkish ports are how they deliver the oil and gas to Israel. That's like 45% of Israel's entire energy grid. And there's never been a moment where Turkey has said, yeah, we're going to fucking shut this down. Okay? Turks used to deny this, by the way. Ironically enough, now they say, "Oh, what can we do? We don't have any power." But they used to literally deny it.
Well, and like it's like I mean, there's like obviously so much more about this than me, but to me it has always struck me that like Turkey's policy is just a triangulation game. Like it's like they know where their people are at on this issue. They know what the demands are of like their current set of geopolitical alliances and strategy. And then there's also like whatever set of policies are good to preserve like the level of accumulation for the people that run the show. And so it's like always finding like what is like like the 5-inch by 6-inch hole in which you can fit something that like meets all those needs.
Yeah. But I think the real test of like whether this is unsinkable aircraft carrier or Zog theory will be if Israel gets to wage war against Turkey and then like undermines the entire NATO allegiance altogether. Because like at that point it's like undeniable, right? Like it's fucking ridiculous that America would be like, yeah, you know what, this NATO stuff is too big.
I mean, NATO is. I mean, look, one of the. Okay, I'll throw this out there so that I can because this is actually like what I'm about to say is like real live stream fail material, which is just that I do think that it's like NATO is coming under an enormous amount of pressure, and simply because the fight is now happening in Iran, I think people have kind of lost sight of a bit about some of what makes NATO feel very fragile at this moment. Like the geopolitical origin of NATO, right? Like the basis of it was an alliance to combat the Soviet Union and to prevent the spread of communism there. And it came together in the years after World War II, at the beginning of the Cold War, and we were almost a century on. And does the strategic rationale that was the basis for the origin of NATO still hold? And I'm posing a question that like was very heavily theorized and discussed in the 1990s in particular. George Kennan had some interesting stuff to say about it as somebody who was one of the ideological inspirations for NATO and a Cold War ideologue who then by the 90s is like, this thing may have run its course. Well, that's a thing.
Breaking, Anadolu Agence says,
oh, this is awesome.
U.S. delegation coming to Pakistan in a day or two for possible talks, but Iran's still not ready due to mistrust. Pakistani foreign ministry sources tell Anadolu. Dude, imagine the pump fake. They go and they're not there.
I mean, the U.S. is doing that. That's what's happening. This is humiliating. So, please, Erdogan, come to Washington. We need a real government. We need a real government. We can't have these. We can't have these losers who show up to diplomacy meetings without knowing if the other people are even going, just because they know how fucked they are.
I think they should mock Witkoff and just be like, yeah, we're coming, and then just not show up. And they're because like, what are they gonna do? They're like talking about blowing up the energy grid in Iran. Okay, Iran has said that they're retaliating.
All right, we'll do it back.
They keep King Von posting on a daily fucking basis. They literally posted every single energy infrastructure that they will destroy in the entire fucking region. And obviously a lot of people think, oh, well, this will collapse the GCC and it will have global impacts that are insanely damaging, but maybe like the entire world will come together and like oppose Iran. But the reality of the matter is, because of the way in which global capitalism works, it creates a massive security flaw. It's a fragile ecosystem when you have a country that's willing to fucking not just like take the war back to the principal defenders, but directly to the fucking centers of profit, directly to the centers of capital. Those are American banks, right? Those are American refineries at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's Saudi Aramco, but like who fucking put those things together? Who still benefits from it? These are still going to be American. These are still going to be American capital owners that are not benefiting from
And
their
also,
investments getting blown up.
And even if we don't directly own this stuff anymore, or even if we're not directly a part of it, like, I don't know, who pays for Saudi Arabia's, who supplies them with their military technology, who supplies all of these people, like essentially the rudiments of state making, let's call it, like all of the things that you need to do to be able to administer power, administer government in the 21st century. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, none of those countries could do any of it were it not for the largesse of the United States, like coming, on the other side of the table. Like that is what the U.S. brings to the bargain.
Yeah. Also, massive explosion heard in Tehran, along with air defenses. Like they're still being fucking bombed.
Oh yeah, great.
But I do love personally that Donald Trump went from, oh, we're gonna blow everything up, to this.
Not war, not war, not war. Just peace, just peace. Just peace.
No war!
Forever, forever. Peace forever. No crazy war. No crazy.
No crazy war. No guerra. He went in a matter of like, 2 to 3 weeks. He went from yes war to no war, no crazy war, just peace. Peace forever. They should immediately release Maduro, by the way, which is really fucked up. But
Free my man.
yeah, free my man. High school walkout. Free Maduro walkout. 3 p.m. Netanyahu just spoke to Trump. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I just spoke to President Trump.
Here, read it.
I spoke earlier today with President Trump. He believes there is a chance to leverage the military achievements of the war to get all of the objectives of the war through an agreement. Such an agreement will safeguard our interests.
I think these guys don't. I think he's first.
They're
of all,
all trying to find a way out, man. They're all trying.
It's funny,
we're now getting
but
like
they
the
don't get it.
We're getting
They
the
don't get
leaks
it.
from the Mossad saying that like the Mossad thought there was going to be an uprising. Like, oh no, this is cooked. They're done. They're trying to find the door.
They are so fucked. And the reality is, Iran. Oh my god, because they killed all the fucking restraint guys. They killed all the restraint guys, so the rest are like, no, we have the fucking upper
have
hand.
you seen Jalali's post? The more hardliner guy from their government who's still both alive and on Twitter, who has been doing some pretty good posts today that I've been seeing.
No, they've been doing like they've been doing like cringe posting. The IRGC guy was like, Donald Trump, you are fired. Like, it's Robert Pape is cursed to see his work vindicated over and over again.
All right, he wasn't the first guy to point out that air power
escalation.
never like wins. To be clear,
But but it's that, and also the escalation ladder. He loves like he only posts the same thing, copy and paste every day. He's like, well, this is the escalation trap. Please read my book.
My book. No, I also look as somebody who has to hawk something. I'm never gonna knock somebody for that.
Yeah.
But I think that this is part of what's so goofy though now, where it's like what we're now witnessing, like what we are seeing right now. Like set Lebanon to the side for a moment. What we're seeing in Iran is like this insane, bizarre scramble. It's like the Israel and the U.S. are like, I don't. This for your audience is probably too old, but one of the best like jackass. Jackass sketches is medicine ball dodgeball, and it's like fucking the U.S. and Israel are trying to find the door in like a dark room where people are throwing medicine balls like dodgeballs. It's absurd.
IRGC clip. Oh yeah, this was the clip.
Oh,
Trump, you are fired. You are familiar with this sentence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The central headquarters of Khatam al-Anbiya.
You are fired.
Donald Trump, you are fired. You are familiar with this sentence. That's hilarious.
Donald
dude.
Trump's gonna be like, we need to put. We're gonna bury him under the jail. We're gonna bury him under the reactor.
I just wanted to be one of the 88 clerics. Why can't I have a say? I've studied the Quran. I know the literature. I know it. I'm Shia in my heart and soul.
I do think that there is also like it's so difficult because we're now like a solid decade into like Trump life, and there have been so many cycles of discourses about his health, his state of mind.
Yeah.
How aware is he of what's going on? And I really do feel, not because I've seen like clips of Trump where he looks out of it or out of sorts, but just like, I don't think have we ever seen a policy, like, and this is like for Trump I'm talking about. For Donald Trump, have we ever seen something this crazy, this, discombobulated, this contradictory?
It's funny because, like, it's not even entirely his own fault. I mean, obviously, it mostly is his fault because he still very much has the capacity to make that phone call to be like, we're done here, right? It's over. And I don't know how much of the leverage they have. I'm certain that, like, reading the tea leaves here and looking at the Iranian response, if they were to like cut Israel out of the equation and were to like withdraw, which America simply doesn't do, with the exception of like with the Ansar Allah movement and stuff. But if they were to do that, if they were to give Iran assurances, like I'm certain that Iran would eventually say, all right, fine, pay us reparations, or by unfreezing some of the assets that you have frozen for years and years. It would be a massive blow to American confidence and stuff. But like, it would, in my opinion, it would probably salvage like the remains of like the American empire, at least for like another decade or two.
Had they gone in,
but if they go in gung ho, like if they continue to escalate and think that they could do boots on the ground military warfare with a country that has designed its entire defense around this exact scenario, with a topography that looks the way it does, like a fucking fortress on three sides with mountains, they're fucked. Like it's over. That's why they're quietly conceding. Well, not quietly, loudly conceding.
I mean, I do think that some of what's going on though is that, like, and this is one of those things where it's like the Trump sloppiness and the incompetence really can't be dismissed or underplayed, because I do think that this is what we're like everything you said, ordinarily, if you were to get into a situation like this, as a military leader, as a president, whatever, you have an idea of what your off ramps are. You have an idea of, if X doesn't work out, then we will do Y. Or we will find a way to, like, Israel's very good at that, by the way, because Israel has chosen very aggressive, very shocking, but fundamentally limited objectives as that it seeks to accomplish as part of its whole strategic vision. But like, they find ways out when things start to not, when the people start coming home in body bags, which is really the only metabolic thing that keeps Israel from getting deeper involved. But like, to me, this is where it's like, yeah, this is evidence of Trump had no plan to get out. And because there's no plan, he's in this like really it's a political trap. It's entirely a political trap. Because as you say, there's no reason he can't just, make the call and say we're done. It's that he has to come up with like a basis for political legitimacy to do that. And he's done so many different things, plus not having had the forethought. He doesn't have any way of accomplishing that. There is no political victory, even partial, that he can claim at this moment that we can yet see. And we're now entering week 3 or whatever the fuck of him trying to find simply that. I thought it was goofy. Can Iran give Trump a world peace award to end the war? I actually think that kind of logic is like where we are headed, because we're not going to see actual like things on the ground or like a major like a treaty. I know that we are in week 4. I think that they had a week where they thought they could really win this thing, and we've been 3 weeks of like, oh fuck, of like, where do I go?
The reason why I brought this is a theory that is like maybe a little lib-brained of me, but like, I truly think Donald Trump doesn't believe in the competence of his own intelligence community and his own like generals, and time again he is like listen to Vladimir Putin or even Benjamin Netanyahu
Yeah.
in this instance. Like, he will just be like, his own generals will come up to him and be like, dude, we're going to run out of fucking batteries. We're going to run out of defense systems. Like, we don't have the procurement strategy to develop in a rush, just in time manufacturing system that we have, like develop in a rush, like all the fucking missiles that are necessary for keeping up this defense. And if you do this, it's going to be devastating. Dan Kane literally came out and leaked it to the press ahead of time. Like, it's one of the biggest blows of the confidence of the American military is when your top general literally is like, this fucking idiot's not listening to me. I have to go and tell every outlet I possibly can that this is going to be a spectacular failure, with the hopes that there will be some pressure from reasonable minds.
There is like one stratum of this, or like one like area of this that we haven't brought up, which is like part of how this thing works and gets sustained. And that's like, I would say it's a combination of like the Israel lobby and their fellow travelers. So I'm thinking of like FDD, and I'm thinking of AIPAC, and I'm thinking of all these other organizations.
Dude, they talked about their objectives. It's literally copy paste from the FDD.
Yep.
FDD is a cutout for the Israeli government, by the way. For those of you who don't know, Foundation for Defense of Democracy. What's the Hebrew name of it initially? I think it's like.
I know they had to change the name because originally it was a Hebrew word, but they like.
I think it was a Hebrew word for truth.
Emet?
Yes, it was Emet. So FDD in 2001, when it was first launched, was called Emet. Okay, the Hebrew word for truth, and they had to like restructure it and make it more American because it was like too Israeli coded. But it's never actually changed its design. Its purpose is literally to serve as Benjamin Netanyahu's own personal think tank in America, and yeah, it's unbelievable that the American government's official communique shows a direct copy paste from the Israeli, like the Israeli fucking mouthpiece in Washington D.C. Like, look,
I would also add
this level of infiltration is insane, dude.
I mean, and it's like infiltration is to me an accurate description from, even if this was like some 24-year-old who's working for the Trump administration was told like, oh, we need to have this page up and running, like go get the fact sheet out, like, and this is their choice was to just copy and paste this. That tells you something. I think the other thing, somebody else has been sharing this, about how Trump believes Israeli intelligence. Like, one of the not so open, or one of the not so like tight secrets of American foreign policy is that Israeli intelligence is garbage. Lawrence Wilkerson, the ex-Powell advisor, is like a very he's spoken very explicitly about this.
It didn't used to be.
Well, it's because it became, particularly since the Netanyahu era, like what it is it's intelligence at its worst for political purposes, meaning that it's intelligence that is made to support specific political objectives of the government.
Yes.
It's not like unvarnished political reporting. It's not sourcing. It's stuff that it's Iraq war stuff all over again.
Because the goal is not like in their minds like survival, in the same way that like the American defense industry no longer operates for a specific military purpose or a specific military objective. There's so much defense bloat because it's a capitalist invention. So they don't give a fuck about like making the cheapest and the most resilient pieces of military equipment. The sophistication of it and the cost of it is no longer a consideration at all, because it's just an unlimited slush fund, right? For all of the fucking shareholders that constantly draw further and further profits. And that's why you see the F-35, which is supposed to be this like this beacon of American military superiority, get fucking taken out by a K truck with a fucking built air defense system on top of it in the mountains of Iran, and it's a massive blow to American air superiority. And for by the way, anyone that can see it,
we're taking L's that we don't even know about yet. Like the fucking, like, there's that ship that got hit that they're saying there was like a laundry fire, I think, the Gerald Ford. And then, there's never been all of a sudden, I don't know if you guys have known about this, but there's a lot of the F-15, which has had one of the most immaculate combat records in like 40, 50 fucking years of service. And then all of a sudden, we've been losing F-15s. Oh, yeah, and then there was that F-35 that went down. Yeah. A plane that, by the way, is going to cost billions to replace.
$2 trillion in R&D that is supposed to be the peak of American ingenuity, right, is now being combat tested in real time and in a record pace has lost his air superiority against defenses, and people are coping so fucking hard that they're like, oh, this doesn't actually put a real dent in like American superiority.
By the way, what Maz Hussein is pointing out right now, by the way, here is really important because there was this piece, there was one opinion column in Al Jazeera a few days ago, last week, that was just getting passed around over and over. Like Ben Smith from Semaphore, a lot of people with, frankly, like a lot more sympathy than they should have for the Gulf countries or Gulf governments.
Well, they do
were
conferences
sharing it.
out
Yeah,
there.
exactly. But they were like, oh,
But
this is
so
really
do
interesting.
And I went to the Pearl of the Gulf. I went to the Pearl of the Gulf. Okay, I feel bad for Qatar. Maybe Iran should stop. That's what I think. That's right.
Yeah, that easy.
Yeah, it's that easy for me.
So like there was this article in Al Jazeera, and it was all about how like it was the bear case for Iran. Essentially, it was saying that like, look, Iran is actually in a weak position. All of these launchers have been destroyed. How do we know they're destroyed? Because they're not launching missiles. And that was like the most salient factual claim in that piece. And it was like a very like, now we're seeing no, Iran's capacity hasn't been diminished at all.
Yeah. It's like, this is the thing
I mean,
that
not
I
at
want.
all, but you know what I
This
mean.
is the thing that I want. Yeah, it's not been treated in the way that it's presented, right?
Exactly. That's my point.
And that's the thing that I want to ask people that like are constantly like reading the recycled Cope machine from people who are like, American military superiority is awesome. We're fucking, our dicks are so hard. Like how do you cope with that reality that like a fucking 34-year-old dickhead that has no like insider information has been openly fucking saying that this is a spectacular boondoggle from day one? I have literally been able to pinpoint and call out, alongside many people in the OSINT side of things that aren't so hoorah about American military superiority. How do you make sense of that reality where people from the outside can have more sober assessment about America's capabilities and, more importantly, its limitations than these people that are on the inside that have been basically fucking telling themselves and anyone who will listen lies over and over and over again? There have been people, there were people initially that would come into my chat and be like, you're just coping. You're just fucking sad that your best friend, the Ayatollah, got fucking murked and you can't get that sweet IRGC money any longer. And I was like, dude, I'm just telling you what's going to happen tomorrow. And when it happens tomorrow, you're going to come up with a fucking new cope. And they've been doing that now for fucking 23 days. When will it end?
That's pretty good. DUI hires.
Yeah, DUI hires. Exactly.
I haven't heard that one before.
Like 23 fucking days, man. It's crazy. At some point, you got to wake up to the reality that like the Iranian missile barrages are not stopping. And unironically, the Israeli defenses are actually diminished in the process. And they can't fucking defend the country anymore. Okay.
I mean, this is to me like what this really reminds me of is the like what's happening now reminds me of like what a lot of people when Reagan got elected, what they thought he was going to get into, and then they were kind of pleasantly surprised that he just decided to do proxy wars. There's
by the way, yeah. Oh, sorry to stop you, but hype train incoming. Piker Broadcasting Service. Please subscribe for tomorrow's news today. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Piker Broadcasting Services sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Your subscriptions allow me to maintain my editorial independence. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. They wanted like Reagan to be the one who would like, you know, like, or they didn't want it. They thought Reagan would be the one to do all this or whatever. And it ended up being like a 40-year head start, but the 40-year, you know, like lag, I guess. But to me, the thing that like is a part of what jumps out is that like all of this reminds me of like it's the same language, the same rhetoric, the same patterns of thought as all the people who after America got washed in Vietnam were like, let's fucking get out there, let's do it again. You know, let's you know, saddle the fuck back up. Because I just don't know how you look at something like this and be like, you know what, we'll fix this if we just throw a bunch of ground troops into the equation.
Yeah, U.S. Navy nuclear aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford might be out of action for 14 months.
Bro, Jason Tatum wasn't even out that long.
It's fucked up.
Jason Tatum, like you see NBA players like every night like lose like tendons and they're back on the fucking court quicker than this.
Well, he's this $13 billion piece of expensive machinery is constantly in a I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like, there's two working theories here, right? Obviously, one is that Iran was like peppering it somehow, and then the other one is like mutiny.
Yeah,
I think it could be mutiny.
So mutiny is in
Or
our
like
in
sabotage.
blowback season 5. Yeah, 5. Yeah, the one about Cambodia and Vietnam. I have a good interview with people who are part of like essentially like a race riot on a ship, the Kitty Hawk, and that was one of a number of incidents. And we mentioned this briefly in that season, but like one of the reasons why there's a really great book by the author David Courtwright that also talks about this. Like essentially in 1972, during the period of time when Nixon finally is like really forced to like end the war, essentially, part of what's going on is all of these mutinies and riots on Navy ships, on aircraft carriers, the USS Constellation, the Kitty Hawk. And they're, these were very scandalous big events at the time that have been kind of, memory hold a bit. But part of what was so astonishing was that like troop readiness and morale was was one of the biggest reasons why the, military ended up, the U.S. was forced to exit the Vietnam War. So the idea that
buddy fucking was like a commonplace practice.
I mean, you would read stories about like troops, who were in Cambodia who would frag their officers. Who were sending them to do pointless or stupid missions that they didn't agree with. I mean, granted, there was a draft, and a draft existing like that's why we had an anti-war movement. We had an anti-war movement because we had a draft.
Like that's the funniest thing when people are like, "Well, we should bring back the
oh,
draft."
sorry. Why aren't people doing anti-war politics so good while we did Vietnam?
The people that are in defense of this administration's actions, claiming that we should do a draft, are the funniest people to me because you don't understand what you are fucking suggesting. The only way that the American war machine continues is when it constantly feeds self-selecting individuals who are volunteering, not knowing what they're going to get into in real, if we're being honest, they just don't fully comprehend. They just think like, oh, I'll just be on a ship for a little bit and then, I'll get a comms degree and hopefully I can get a fucking job and have my college paid for. But like, that is the system that has forced Americans or caused Americans to decouple entirely from foreign policy. If there was a draft initiated tomorrow, all of a sudden, it would become a very different reality. Every single 18 to 25-year-old would be losing their fucking minds. You would see a real anti-war movement.
Mild counterpoint.
Okay.
Gen Z, soon Gen Alpha, like generations of people whom we think of as like indoor kids.
Yeah.
They're on the computer a lot. I think a lot of them want to see the world. And we know that they're not going to be able to get good jobs that would allow them to travel. So I actually think, kind of almost like dialectically, they are the generation that if there is going to be a generation drafted to fight some psycho war, it would be like the iPad babies.
I think it's going to be
very hard.
hard.
iPad babies.
I disagree. I think it's going to be very hard to sell them on the idea that
they don't have to be sold. They don't have to consent. My point.
No, I know, but like I'm saying that they're not gonna fucking go and die for Israel. I don't think. But
no, I think that they're gonna. No, obviously, I think what's end up gonna happen. If there will never be a draft, it's not a viable option. It's political suicide in this country. But like the idea of committing ground troops in this moment, I think would have a very comparable effect. I think that if they were actually sending and preparing for like a meaningful ground presence with American troops that is, beyond being stationed at any of our bases or patrolling the seas or whatever in this moment, then like you would quickly start to see some 1970s style shit, even though we don't have a draft, because that's how unpopular this bullshit is.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if they would frag their officers, but I think you'll see, minor sabotage in the way that you're seeing currently. Like all of a sudden the toilets don't flush. And then they find out that there's like just t-shirts being dumped into the bathrooms. Who the fuck puts a t-shirt in the toilet? I mean, I know some of these guys are fucking stupid, but that made me think like this got to be deliberate.
Well, there's now, I think one of the things that we're starting to see, because there really are not many press institutions that have like ties with like the military. Meaning that like there aren't a ton of reporters who write for huge general audiences and who are also like, really plugged into what the most, creative minds and free thinking individuals, let's say, with those people in either the officer corps or among the general infantry. And that's not because like reporters today like love war that much more. It's just because of like the military's gotten that much better at keeping its personnel away from the press, and the press has been conditioned to not actually ask these kinds of questions. So I think that like the extent to which like we are seeing this sort of dissension among the troops, it's just not communicated publicly, and they can hide a lot of it. They're hiding a lot of it really successfully, I have to imagine.
Yeah. If you buy what CENTCOM is selling, this is the most accident-prone the U.S. military has been in its entire history. The F-15 entered service 60 years ago and has never been down during a war. Now 5 of them have been down by malfunction and friendly fire in 2 weeks. On March 5th, the IDF claimed to have destroyed 300 Iranian missile launchers. So over the next 2+ weeks of fighting, they only destroyed or disabled 30 launchers. None of it makes sense, especially because they were leaning too hard into either plugging some holes, which they probably successfully did, right? Like the entry points into where these tunnel systems are. And that caused a momentary pause in the volleys that were being launched. Or Iran was actually, moving in a different direction and trying to make sure that this was a war of attrition and they could continue doing this for as long as possible. And that's why they were taking pot shots with the cluster munitions that they keep opening up on top of the Israeli airspace, because you only, as I kept repeatedly explaining, you only do that when your goal is to just like frustrate Israeli society. You're not doing that for any sort of like specific military purpose beyond, pissing off Israeli society, crippling the Israeli economy, forcing them into bomb shelters, because those are not interceptable missiles.
This goes to an argument also that Dylan Saba has put forward. He wrote for Jewish Currents in 2023 that I think is still one of the most powerful interventions I've ever read on anything related to these issues, which was about how Iron Dome is an offensive weapon. And the idea is that Israel's defensive capabilities have been so aggressively beefed up so as to inoculate Israelis from what in any other context would be viewed as like the reasonable costs incurred for fighting a regional war.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
There is now, and I think in this situation, Iran has finally figured out that we have taken, their leaders have arrived at the decision, forced really, that there's no more respecting that. You have to flood the zone and test the limits of this system. And they've tested it, and they found that actually, Israeli leaders are now having to prepare their family of mine has heard this as well. Israeli leaders are trying to prime the population for the idea that they may not have to, because all of the Israelis running to the shelter and stuff before, when Hezbollah would send a rocket, or when Islamic Jihad or Hamas would send a rocket from Gaza and it would land in a field in Beersheba. You were talking about almost what was for Israeli leaders, as they saw it, the perfect level of suffering that they could experience, because it reminded the population of the danger, but it was not enough to actually destroy and disrupt their quality of life over the course of year, 2 years, whatever. And having lived in Beersheba, having lived in the south in the Israeli South myself, and at a time when that was the case, it was very obvious that was the function.
Yeah, that's why when you interview regular folks, ordinary Israeli society, they just have a totally insane attitude about waging war with Iran, because from their perspective, there's no cost. There's some costs, there's minor nuisances, and I suspect that might change eventually, but I don't know, because part of me also thinks that just as we saw with October 7, they're fucking insane.
They're insane, but they have there's a limit, not a limit to how crazy they are, but insanity can be checked by reality and certain, how crazy are you willing to be when your bank account is zero, that kind of, or when it goes to zero and you can't feed yourself. There's a certain kind of degree there's a certain element of this to me where part of what we still have not seen yet is the real stress test applied, not just to Israelis, everyday Israelis and their everyday happiness and their joy, with bombs and missiles falling on them. It's instead about the question of Like, can the Israeli society, can the Israeli polity survive intact in any recognizable form were this war to continue and their economy were to become devastated? Because Israel is not Iran. Israel is a tiny country, and it has a lot of
tiny countries,
tiny country, and
size of New Jersey.
Meaning, though, what happens when a lot of those people who have dual citizenship in other countries and have been for the past number of years, even before October, this is a story I've told many times. A very, very influential and well-known Israeli journalist reached out to me. This is well before October 7th, because I had said, on Twitter, I said something like I had informally heard that there were many people who had been, who were leaving Israel because prior to October 7th, the radical government was making a bunch of Israeli libs start to feel, nervous and sketchy. And so if you had a German passport, an American passport, people were starting to move assets. And I'd said, I threw some cold water on that. I was like, I haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen the statistics. And then this guy out of nowhere, somebody who I don't have a connection to, saw my comment and was just like, I just want to let you know, I think you're wrong. And that was prior to October 7th. I would be fascinated if, I would be so curious how, if the conditions in Israel were actually made that much more damaging, if they were that much more destructive to the average Israeli life, what might happen for all of the people who are in Israel who don't necessarily want to stay there. And I think that's where, again, like we've really not seen, and what I'm describing may be a situation that just like is not really plausible because Israel would move so aggressively to prevent any circumstance like that from happening in real time. But I think that what I'm really trying to point out is that we've not even seen Israel get tested to that point, and what Iran has been doing in terms of how it is stretching the limits of Israeli defenses is suggesting that, well, maybe we are going to see if that can happen. Maybe we're going to see if that possibility can be breached.
Yeah. Now let's look at another exit ramp for the world's least loyal man, who has always thrown everybody else under the bus. Perhaps this could be a first inclination of who might be in the crosshairs. Let's take a look.
I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people, and I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror, and they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60. There's no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions. They started last...
I don't know if he'll throw Pete under the bus here. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, that sounds like he's giving Pete a pat on the head, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and I'm sure, Pete has got a nice heart on having gotten that pat on the head.
Yeah. Iran's main demand is communicated to the mediators. If Trump fires Hexit, all bets are off. Moin Rabbani is joking there.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. Breaking. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, who some claim has been negotiated with the U.S., says no negotiations have taken place, and the President Trump is claiming otherwise to manipulate the markets. It is crazy that, because it's no longer a non-state actor in the same way that, we very quickly did away with the Iraqi government, right? In the immediate invasion, and we were fighting against a not like a fully fleshed out state in the Taliban, in Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, but Iran is a state actor. It's a sovereign state. So you can't, especially with social media, you can't really undermine their position as much as you could, dominate the airwaves when you're talking about Israel versus Hamas. Talking about Israel versus Hezbollah. You have dudes with 8 PhDs on fucking, the interpretation of Quran from a Western capitalist framework, who are just coming out and posting on social media and also doing interviews in English with American news outlets. All of a sudden, I think that plays a major role in, it delivers a major blow to whatever the American goals of propaganda are, right? Because then mainstream media will cover the Iranian
There's another thing though,
posts.
which is that it's not just about that Iran's a state and that Hamas is like a political organization with like limited autonomy, whatever. It's that Iran also has like the world economy by the nuts.
Yeah.
Like that they can do things that force people to take them seriously.
Yeah.
And it's just literally not been until this wave of this conflict that all of a sudden the West realized it. Because Iran had chosen not to go this far. They made the Iranian government, for whatever reason, much to the criticism of people much to the criticism of Western leftists, for example, they chose not to take it to this level until this most
It was
recent.
undeniable that it was
until Trump said we're coming to kill all of you.
Like I think this was Yahya Sinwar's calculation. It's just that both Hassan Nasrallah and Khamenei were far more restrained than he thought they would be. That's what I think.
Meaning, like in the prior conflicts, meaning that he
Yes.
thought it would come to this earlier.
I think that the purpose of the Al-Aqsa flood was to trigger was to trigger an Iranian retaliation of this sort.
I think it's plausible. I think one of the things though is that like it's there's always this kind of, and this is like also what Israel's deal was, is that they're always like testing the limits of what they think they can get away with. Because I also think in some sense what you're describing is that like yes, they wanted to provoke some kind of response, but now we're in a dog getting the car situation. And like I think that they actually knew all along that they didn't want that smoke. What they wanted is what they said that they wanted, which is that they wanted the Iranian people to rise up. Like I also do believe that on some level, like these guys have been believing their own bullshit about the closeness of, put it this way, you were just in Cuba. You saw what life was like in Cuba. For 60 years, every American president, save for Obama, has been told by their advisors, we're this close. You're going to be the president who's going to get to see the Castro regime fall. It's the same thing with Iran. And I think that they ultimately believed their bullshit too much, even if they weren't believing it coming out of the Pahlavi's mouth. Like they believed it on this, like deeper level because they literally hadn't been presented with like a counter fact at any point. And until now.
Yeah, I mean, Trump, I think other presidents have, not saying much, but even including Biden, like have at least like demonstrated some level of restraint. Because I believe that Israel behind closed doors was always telling them the same fucking lie. But at least they were like competent enough to listen to their generals and their analysts and their own intelligence assessment to be like, no, we're not fucking doing that. You're out of your goddamn mind. It's too much of a risk, right? Until Trump. I think Trump demonstrated in Trump 1 and also in Trump 2, as we're seeing now, that he was the guy who was going to be like, yeah, no, you guys, your intelligence is great. I love what you did with the beepers, that type of shit.
Yeah.
Running off of like the highs that he got from the Venezuela operation, which was remarkably competent in comparison to what we're seeing in Iran right now, right? He thought this would be swift. I think he believed
the Maduro thing really got to his head.
Yeah, no, I think he genuinely thought, oh, decapitation, boom, 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 because I know he does not want to put boots on the ground.
No,
he has never, like he might inevitably lean in that direction because he's like he's not going to back away, right?
This one I don't know about, because I also don't think that like you leak that you're considering troops, or you don't allow it to get out that you're considering ground troops, because it's in this current moment. The Iranians will read that as a sign of weakness because they're like, bring that on. If that's the level you're going to, bring it on. And politically, domestically, it's insanely unpopular. So if it doesn't present to Iran as or the world as a show of strength, and it drives the American public crazy, then why are you doing it? And that's where I think that like I do hold some measure of judgment on whether or not Trump is actually like opposed to ground troops. We know that he said at different points like Iraq, it was a mistake. I'm never no new wars. But like
no, but like
he's a master liar.
Yeah, but think about it. Like he didn't do that in Venezuela. He amassed a big enough force to potentially draw Venezuela or go into a much larger conflict in Venezuela. Like you don't amass that level of naval forces if your goal is not to like eventually take it. I mean, if you're not willing to present that as a threat, while simultaneously he has always done crazy shit, but he has also backed away at times.
I don't disagree, but Venezuela
Like with Ansarallah.
Venezuela worked also though because like you saw the Wall Street Journal article about the CIA guy.
Oh yeah, the
who worked
oil
for
guy.
who had worked for Chevron.
Yeah.
Like Venezuela is different from every other country that we've talked to because American corporation multinationals have had a major like presence in Venezuela for, you know, like within the last 20 years. I mean, there are people who are, you know, CIA affiliated who worked with Chavez to get oil out of Venezuela into the world market. You know, it's not like meaning that there were connections, there were, you know, they had, I think they had a more realistic portrait of what the situation was in Venezuela and how they could exploit it. I just, it doesn't seem, you know, it's, to me, it just seems like they had the one radical plan that actually had a chance of working because of, you know, the way they did it out and the legwork they did. And Trump's lesson from that was, oh, well, I could just do whatever I want now because we did whatever I wanted here, even though that wasn't what they did. They did a pretty specific thing with some limits, and that's not this.
Yeah. All right, let's hear what Scales' new reporting looks like.
Damn, this guy's good.